The Democrats don't speak for me. Speak for me. Speak for me. Republicans can't speak for me. Speak for me. Speak for me. A bitch ass nigga can't speak for me. Speak for me. Speak for me. You coon ass niggas can't speak for me. Speak for me. Speak for me. Listen here, this is a fact of life. I be rapping like Nat Turner came back to life. Grab Donald Trump by the pussy, he ain't acting right. I never run from a conflict, I be glad to fight. It's a very cold world that we living in. Somebody please tell Elizabeth you're not an Indian. You just trying to con them people to get the benefit. Just another immigrant, stealing from the Indians. That's some punk ass shit and that's too lame. Now we finna step over to Andrew Yang. And you a sucker, you could never speak for black folks. Fake ass pandering, trying to get the black vote. The Democrats don't speak for me. Speak for me. Speak for me. Republicans can't speak for me. Speak for me. Speak for me. A bitch ass nigga can't speak for me. Speak for me. Speak for me. You coon ass niggas can't speak for me. Speak for me. Speak for me. You know your boy be high off sativa. Kamala wasn't popping, so we said bye, Felicia. She ain't had a right policy. We ain't trying to meet her. Y'all can take Biden too. Bye. We don't need him. We don't need Roland Martin or that coon Al Sharpton. Didn't need Cory Booker from the start, man. I don't fuck with police and no snitch. You know I'm coming with the heat when I spit it. The Democrats don't speak for me. Speak for me. Speak for me. Republicans can't speak for me. Speak for me. Speak for me. A bitch ass nigga can't speak for me. Speak for me. Speak for me. You coon ass niggas can't speak for me. Speak for me. Speak for me. If you ever go to court and this is your luck, try not to get fucked by Benjamin Crump. I know it's hard. You and all go is hard. But who the fuck is Amy Cloak? Put her picture up on the bullseye and start throwing darts. People cut our organs out our bodies, that's a stolen heart. They can't save us from the flood like Noah's Ark. Black lives always matter, we finna go for ours. So then we savages, we don't need to pot the piss. Mike Bloomberg can suck dick with that stop and frisk, bitch. You ain't speaking for us, we don't know you. Bernie Sanders, they get your funky ass on too. The Democrats don't speak for me. Speak for me. Speak for me. Republicans can't speak for me. Speak for me. Speak for me. A bitch ass nigga can't speak for me. Speak for me. Speak for me. You coon ass niggas can't speak for me. Speak for me. Speak for me.
I'm talking about Shouty going crazy. People going crazy in these motherfuckers. Run that shit back, man.
But it means nothing. Nothing. Without a woman on the day. Man made the car. Man made the train to carry the heavy load. Man made the electrolyte to kick us out of the dark. Man made the boat for the water. Like the 7-millimeter. Man thinks about a little bit of baby girl and a baby boy. And man makes them happy because man makes them sorry. But after man make everything we can, do you know that man makes money? To buy from other men. This is a man's world. But
into another episode of the Front Line Blacc News. This is a continuation show. So we can get through all the topics last night. So we're doing a continuation tonight of season 5, episode 9, part 3. So we'll pull up the topics right now. So we got on the season 5, episode 9, part 3, continuation of Front Line Blacc News. We'll be discussing the topics we're going to get to in part 3. And that is Street Media TV speaks to Roly-Poly Martin, Rodney Hinton's lawyer's interview about his mental health. And we got Ashley Babbitt's family to receive $5 million settlement from the Trump administration. ICE's courthouse arrest, is it fair or foul? It happened again. Democrat assaults ICE agent, arresting illegal immigrant allegedly. Etel Haxhiaj or whatever. It's happening. Sanctuary State, California crumbles under ICE deportation pressure. News conference. Denver mayor announces furloughs, hiring freeze, and budget deficit. Full interview, Mayor Mike Johnston on Denver budget shortfall, and our Unhoused neighbor news, and our illegal migrant news. So please join us on STREAMYARD, YouTube, Front Line Blacc News. The links to all our channels are in the description, including J. Millie's and Cookies. And also the copyright description is in there. And if you don't understand racism, white supremacy, what it is and how it works, everything else you think you understand will only confuse you. Shout out to Nelly Fuller Jr., RIP to him. And racism, white supremacy is conscious and subconscious behavior to maintain white genetic survival, to prevent white genetic annihilation. Shout out to Dr. Frances Cress Wilson, RIP to her as well. All right, so we're going to hop right into it. So shout out to Street Media TV. You pulled up on Roly-Poly Martin out there in LA, I want to say. Yeah. So shout out to him. So we got to question Roly-Poly Martin on several things. So shout out to Red Supreme TV. It's going to give us an update on this. Fair use on the copyright disclaimer. Let me read the copyright disclaimer before I do this. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976 allowances made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, and research. Let's get it.
I'll take that. Absolutely. There you go. All right. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. I've been watching.
Street Media. Look at Roly right there. I think Roly came to Philly. And Street Media went up there. Shout out to Street Media for pulling up, man, for the conversation. Yeah.
I only issue that I have is when they attack, black folks who have family culture of other countries, which is nonsensical. I got you. Because that's your history. They have Belafonte. No, I agree. That's correct. That's the only issue. Because a lot of us don't come from here. No, I agree. But let me say this. I don't think that's people attack. I think what happens is what you broke down today, I agree with a lot of what you said. The problem is that elite class, they don't communicate.
Shout out to Lions Dollars, man. Excuse me. Shout out to Lions Dollars for blessing the Cash App. I want y'all to listen closely because there was a little noise in the background, but but I want y'all to listen to what street media is asking roly poly. You right?
The beat. That's
other countries, which is not. I appreciate. Thank you. Thank you.
I've been watching.
I appreciate. I appreciate. I'm sorry. I appreciate. I represent all white. I would say this is not the only issue that I have is when they attack. When they attack black folks who have family in other countries, which is nonsensical.
I got you.
Because that's your children. They have Belafonte. So I agree. That's correct. That's the only issue. Because a lot of us don't come from me.
I agree. I don't think.
Well, there's two sides of the story, Roland Martin. A lot of these foreign blacks have attacked foundational black Americans. A lot of these foreign black people have stood on the side of white folks. So you can't point the finger and say it's just foundational black Americans saying things about them, when in reality, what foundational black Americans are saying about the foreigners, that's in response to what the tethers have been doing for years. But of course, you don't want to talk about that.
right. That part.
I think what happens is what you broke down today. I agree with a lot what you said. The problem is that elite class blacks, we don't communicate. A lot of stuff is all the stuff you said. Is my generation. What's your name? Thomas Allen.
Thomas
Allen.
T-H-O?
Yeah. A-L-L-E. Only thing I'm saying before I walk away from it. We watch it, right?
See, foundational black Americans are just fed up, man, because if you study history, foundational black Americans been welcoming to blacks from any country. If you came over here, you know what we said? Man, if you black, we riding for you. But after a while, we started to realize that a lot of these tethers and foreigners didn't have our best interests in mind.
Right.
So what you see now is foundational black Americans clapping back at the tethers for the disrespect that we tolerated for decades. And that it is what it is. But I hate when people try to make tethers the victims, when tethers have done a lot of, treasonous things.
Right.
But they tend to ignore what the tethers have done to FBA people, and they just want to focus on the names that FBA people call tethers.
We represent the generation under y'all. We're more upset with y'all because a lot of grassroots, we don't know who y'all are. We don't have access to y'all.
You ever hit the deal though?
Yeah.
I don't know who y'all are, but I deal with grassroots people all around the country.
Yes.
See, here's what happens. So I'll have some FBA cats who say, "Oh man, grassroots don't know you." I was like, well, "That's interesting because literally, I get brothers who stopped me in prison." Yeah. Who literally said, "Bro, I watch you on the show. I've gone in the community. What happened?"
Roland saw, man, you can't check my card. I speak to niggas fresh out of prison. I speak to niggas from the streets. I'm accessible to all the brothers out here. And who knows if he's telling the truth anyway, but let's get back into it. So, oh no, don't get it twisted. I speak to brothers from many levels, many different walks of life. I speak to niggas fresh out of prison.
You got somebody who goes, "Oh, I disagree with you." I'm like, first of all, you don't speak for all grassroots.
I agree with
so the issue then becomes
communication.
Right, but also it's a reality of how you drop something in the car. Okay, the reality is how I look at this whole thing is you talk about who represents who. The reality is you're all facets of black. You got elite black people, you got black people, you got all that. So, but the question is, this is how I would tell you: Are you looking out for black people in what you're doing? There are black people without me here. There are black people who are not elite who won't give a damn about black people.
That's absolutely.
So the issue is, what are you doing? There are individuals who I know, who I've met with, bougie as hell. Okay, elite as hell. They actually do stuff black. Now, that people are not. The problem is when people start moving folks in, everybody's all the same. That's why it's so like, and then what happens is this is the last one. Cats, this cracks me up. Cats want to come at someone, they think you're not going to respond. So when I hit that, you can ask him like, no. If you gonna fire at me, I'm gonna hit you with a bazooka. I'm coming back.
Let me get one in. Let me just say.
Go ahead.
Everything, like when I was into everything that you said, you wrote down all the things that's happening with this administration is going. What would you say certain elite classes blacks? Their responsibility was gatekeepers. Whose responsibility when it comes down to a lot of them? lot of those small groups that you're talking about don't even have knowledge.
Yeah, but
You have educated blacks across this country.
right.
But here's
Here's the deal, though. So again, though, you're saying a lot of them. You're not applying on in name stat. That's a general statement,
right.
And so what I'm saying is, I don't make general statements.
Hold on. Let's break this down.
Responsibility when it comes down to a lot of that, because a lot of those small groups that you're talking about don't even have knowledge of.
Yeah, but
You have educated blacks across this country.
right. But here's the deal, though. So again, though, you're saying a lot of them. You're not applying on in name stat. That's a general statement,
right.
And so what I'm saying is, I don't make general statements. I actually use actual names.
Oh, you do.
And so it comes down to
But you have to have organizations and groups.
right there. And that's precisely it. What Carmichael said, show me anybody black who got anything done, it was done through an organization. So that's why I'm always talking about mobilizing and organizing. But so people have to understand the purpose of also organization. I challenge all D9s, all of them.
How was Roland Martin fighting for the best interest of Black Americans when literally he fought for open borders?
Right. That make no sense.
This is the same guy that told black men to vote like a black woman. No, men should vote like men.
Right.
Men ain't got no damn business voting like no damn woman. I don't give a damn if she is black.
Even though that woman clearly not black.
You will never see a white man in position, a white man with a certain level of notoriety, popularity, and fame. You will never see a white man tell other white men, hey, you guys, you need to vote like white women. And that man still be respected in the white community. You'll never see it. You're not going to see a white man tell the younger generation of white men, y'all need to start voting like white women. He would never fix his mouth to say that. But we got people like Roland Martin that fixed his mouth to tell black men we need to vote like black women. And he had the nerve to print that shit on a shirt.
Yeah, he did.
He had the nerve to print it on a shirt.
He did.
Vote like a black woman. Man, Kamala would be in office right now if, well, shit, the majority of FBA people did vote for Kamala Harris. But anyway, moving on. This is crazy.
On the issue, right? But here's the deal, though. So again, though, you're saying a lot of them. You're not applying on in name stat. That's a general statement, right? And so what I'm saying is, I don't make general statements. I actually use actual names. And so it comes down to,
but you have to have organizations and groups to get certain things done.
Hold up, stop right there. And that's precisely it. So Carmichael said, show me anybody black who got anything done, it was done through an organization. So that's why I'm always talking about mobilizing and organizing. But so people have to understand the purpose of also organization. I challenge all D9s, all of them, on the issue of how do you properly use your capacity. A lot of organizations, like perfect example, you got, and I'm telling Prince Hall Mason. I'm like, I'm telling everybody. So the point is, why have black organizations if you're not using them for the community? And so what I say to people,
saying that wrong.
Listen, if you promote open borders, you're not for the community.
Right.
Not at all. Roland Martin promoted open borders and rainbow community policies. Let me repeat that. Rowley promoted open borders in his country, and he supported rainbow community policies. That's exactly what he did.
Yep, that's exactly.
Anybody who says, well, this group's not doing anything, my first response is, okay, what are you doing? What are you doing as an individual? What groups are you a part of? They want to answer, what is your group doing? They can't answer that. They just talk.
I agree with that part too. All right, well, it's good. I'm glad that you actually had the conversation. But we need to have more of a conversation, especially with the young people, because the younger people is gravitating towards what they would call grassroots, and they speak out against y'all.
Hold on. I want you to clarify. When you say they're gravitating to the grassroots,
I'm gonna tell you.
No. Define grassroots.
Well, when you define grassroots as the younger people outside.
The grassroots are the foundation, the people who are the foundation of this country.
Right.
But let's get into what they say. He said define grassroots. Let's get into that. Pretty interesting, right?
I'm glad that you actually had the conversation. But we need to have more of a conversation, especially with the young people, because the younger people is gravitating towards what they would call grassroots, and they speak out against y'all.
Again, no, hold on. I want you to clarify.
Yeah.
When you say they're gravitating to the grassroots,
I'm gonna tell you.
No. Define grassroots.
Well, when you define grassroots as the younger people outside. The ones, hold on. No. You asked me to define it. Let me define it.
Okay.
What I'm saying is you have a whole plethora of young people outside, right? They're starting to pay attention to a lot of stuff online, which we should all the time, right? Online, we start to use the same talking signs, right?
Right.
My thing is it's not a conversation because they don't feel as though a lot of you guys are accessible.
But here's the deal, though.
I'm saying.
Again, when they say you guys, but when they say you guys are not accessible, I ask again, who are they saying not accessible? See, the only reason I'm
what they consider the black.
No.
That are black in high positions.
See, Rolly didn't want to accept that street media said the grassroots are calling you guys out. Then Rolly responds and says, well, who are the grassroots? Who are the excuse me. Who are the grassroots? Well, that's simple, Rolly. The people who stand on business, the people who are the foundation of this country.
Right.
The foundational Black Americans who are known to stand on business. Those are the grassroots people. But he wants to pretend like he don't know what it is, and he tells street media, well, explain to me what is the grassroots. Now you're gonna play stupid.
Again, who would they say not accessible? See, the only reason I'm
what they consider the black.
No.
That are black in high positions that they say do nothing for the community.
But guess what? There are more people who graduate from college who are black who are not in fraternities and sororities.
Right.
See, again, though, they're making assumptions. So the point I'm making is,
These ain't all mine. I'm just referring to
no.
what people say.
I understand that. Here's my follow me here. I don't abide by what people say. I don't abide by them.
I'm sorry.
I don't believe in the general term. Just like I don't generalize in the area. What I challenge people on, and this is very simple. If somebody is, and again, the reason I'm not going to use the phrase grassroots is because there are grassroots. But there are people out there who are not FBA who are grassroots. Yeah. So what I say to people is first, where you get your information from. So when somebody's talking,
Hold on, let's hear what he had to say.
The phrase grassroots is because I don't abide by them.
I'm sorry.
I don't believe in the general term. Just like I don't generalize in the area. What I challenge people on, and this is very simple. If somebody is, and again, the reason I'm not going to use the phrase grassroots is because there are grassroots. But there are people out there who are not FBA who are grassroots. Yeah. So what I say to people is first, where you get your.
Do you guys agree with that? He said there's people. Excuse me. Do you guys agree with this? He said there's people out there who are not FBA that are considered grassroots.
No, I don't agree with that.
Can we honestly say people who are not FBA? Can we honestly say they're not? Can we honestly say that they're grassroots? Because Roland's trying to make it seem like you ain't got to be FBA to be considered grassroots here in this country. According to Roland. Make sure that you guys get the likes up. Bless the like button. Let's get this stream in rotation. Let's get it in the algorithm.
Yeah,
just like I don't generalize in the area. What I challenge people on, and this is very simple. If somebody is, and again, the reason I'm not going to use the phrase grassroots is because there are grassroots. But there are people out there who are not FBA who are grassroots. Yeah. So what I say to people is first, where you get your information from. So when somebody's about information to me, the first thing to me is that factual. That's my whole point. I think. But here's the deal, though. I can't control somebody who doesn't want to watch me. Everything I do is factual. Now, somebody says, I ain't watching you now. Well, that's on you. Probably you screwed up because you missed out on the information.
Democratic show.
So, and the reality is this here. There's only one black daily news show. Right. Mine.
Oh my God.
And so then when somebody says, well, who you put, you only put the lead on, that's also a lie. I got caught saying every time one of these brothers, why do you think people say that? It's because they're making assumptions. Because they also are listening to somebody else and parroting what they're saying. That's what I'm saying. That's why, you know how many You go back to your point about FBA. You were tethered. Well, that's interesting. I'm born in Houston. My parents are born in Houston.
Here go Rolly. Rolly said, hey, man, I'm no tether. I'm born in Houston. I want y'all to listen to Rolly's response. When, you know, FBA people call him a tether, say, oh, no, I'm no tether. I'm from Houston. My family from Texas. Mm-hmm.
Daily news show. Mine. And so then when somebody says, well, who you put? You only put the lead on. That's also a lie. I got caught, man. Every time one of these brothers who
Why do you think people say that?
It's because they're making assumptions. Because they also are listening to somebody else and carrying what they're saying. That's what I'm saying. That's why. You know how many people? You go back to your point about FBA. You were tethered. Well, that's interesting. I'm born in Houston. My parents were born in Houston. My grandparents were born in Texas. My great grandparents were born in America. How am I tethered? Oh, because my fraternal grandfather's ancestors came from Haiti in the 1800s. So, but it's illogical. So then, if I got 4 grandparents and one that came from Haiti and 3 from here, how am I tethered? They don't even know what the hell they say. So what I'm saying is,
that he got 1 grandparent from Haiti. So how does that make him a tether?
I watch you in the 1800s. You only put the lead on. That's also a lie. I got caught, man. Every time one of these brothers who.
Why do you think people say that?
Because they're making assumptions. Because they also are listening to somebody else and carrying what they're saying. That's what I'm saying. That's why. You know how many people? You go back to your point about FBA. You were tethered. Well, that's interesting. I'm born in Houston. My parents were born in Houston. My grandparents were born in Texas. My great grandparents were born in America. How am I tethered? Oh, because my fraternal grandfather's ancestors came from Haiti in the 1800s. So, but it's illogical. So then, if I got 4 grandparents and one that came from Haiti and 3 from here, how am I tethered? They don't even know what the hell they say. So what I'm saying is, what we have to do is, first operate from a position of facts. Okay, that's first.
I don't think that our community understands the position of facts.
Some do. Some do. Well, no, here's the problem. Right, some do. But here's what has to happen. What has to happen is, if there's a group of people.
That's the point I'm making. It is our responsibility.
So here's a good point. If there's a group of people who don't watch me, that's fine. If they're listening to you, that's fine. They ain't gotta watch me. What I challenge them on is, what are you doing? Right?
What are you?
See, it's a lot of people who claim to be grassroots, who complain about what everybody else is doing. But when you ask for what are you doing, crickets. Right. So when I hit them with that, and then if they got no response, I'm like, I don't want to hear your mouth. Because you can't call other people out, you ain't putting in no work. Right?
But I think there are people.
Oh, Rolly said, nigga, he said, man, y'all ain't putting in no work. Rolly said Rolly claimed to be he said, man, I'm putting in all this work. I ain't gonna let these Negroes criticize me and they ain't putting in no work. My people are from Houston. I'm no tether. Oh, no, I'm no tether.
There are putting in work that have a difference of opinions, and I think that's fine. But I think the conversation on a large scale is not being had, because the message is why people don't have a plan of action on how to solve problems.
Here's the other deal, though.
They don't have a plan of action. That's why we have what we have.
If other people who disagree doing their own thing, here's my whole deal. Knock yourself out. Go do what you do. We ain't gonna be doing it together.
I know it's coming to line of them.
No, I'm good.
JAMAL. Got it. Okay. See, I'm doing this because a lot of people think that you wouldn't talk to me. So
I wouldn't consider what Roland doing. I wouldn't say that he's putting in work. You know what I mean? When you're trying your best to keep blacks on a democratic slave plantation, I don't consider that putting in work at all.
Right.
I don't consider that putting in work, keeping black folks on a democratic slave plantation. I'm not saying that blacks should be Republicans either. What I'm saying is blacks need to be independent thinkers in this country. Independent thinkers. Not on a Republican slave plantation, not on a Democratic slave plantation. We need to be independent and vote for policies that benefit us.
Right.
You can't fight for rainbow community policies. You can't fight for open borders in this country, then turn around and say that I'm putting in work. No, it doesn't work like that. That's not considered work. That's indoctrination. That is mind fuckery.
I'm showing them that you will.
First of all, who the hell? Again, that's a lot of people making assumptions.
Right, but that's why I'm asking the questions that I'm asking.
Yeah, a lot of people making assumptions.
And we should be asking questions. So based off of what you
was a ZAK.
that's
ZAK?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
That was my question to you, is the young people. I know you talked about the young people.
That's what I'm speaking for.
Right, but you know,
We say to somebody, you need to vote. First of all, no, this is voting.
right,
This is registration.
right.
This is not registration. I gotta, first of all, again, educate and like inform you as to why you need to be registered. No, why you need to be registered.
Register to vote.
Then I need to get you then to register. Then I need to get you to vote. After the election, I need you to understand, this is your book right here. After the election, there's a process after the election.
Right.
And see, this is actually, the second big. First biggest problem in the front end, we're not registered yet.
Exactly, Frank Battle. Shout out to Frank Battle. Frank Battle says what Roland don't understand is that it's his anti-black, it's his anti-FBA politics of what makes him a tether. Tether is an action.
Right.
It's an action verb. You got to do some anti-black-ish to earn your tether badge.
Right.
I agree with that. Being a tether is an action, right? Like, you know, you got some blacks from Jamaica and Haiti, and they're not tethers because they stand with the grassroots. They stand with the people. You know, they fight for what's right. So being a tether is an action.
Right.
Shout out to Frank Battle for putting that in the chat, man, because a lot of people will say, oh, well, you guys considered anybody that's not FBA tethered. Not necessarily. But let's get back to the commentary.
I need to get you then to register. Then I need to get you to vote.
Exactly. A tether is a foreign Sambo. That's all it is.
Yep.
It ain't nothing but a foreign coon. That's it. That's all.
After the election, I need you to understand, this is your book right here. After the election, there's a process after the election.
Right.
And see, this is actually the second biggest problem. First biggest problem in the front end, we're not registered yet. We're not voting out capacity. Okay. So if you just look at raw numbers, okay, black voters in Philadelphia can determine the state. Everybody talks about how outside of Philadelphia and Pittsburgh and the suburbs is Alabama. When you look at raw numbers, so the problem is you got black people in Philadelphia complaining about what's not being done. But if I look at the voting numbers, I'm like, well, that's where your power is.
Right.
And so what has to happen is a lot of people don't understand this political process. Okay.
Right. And
So is he saying the majority of the black population in Philly and Pittsburgh, is he saying that they don't really come out to vote? Because there's a lot of voting power in Philadelphia because there's a large black population in Philadelphia. I get it. But what are they voting for though?
Right.
The thing is, it's not just about voting. What are you voting for, and who are you Listen, who are you voting for? What are you voting for? Because you can get thousands, if not millions, of FBA people out there to vote, but what are they actually voting for? That's the real question.
My parents were Civic Club founders, so I lived this since I was 9 and 10. But that's actually grassroots, a Civic Club.
right.
So I witnessed at 9, 10, 11, hardcore underground how to get a stop sign, how to get an overgrown, how to get a crack house torn down.
Right.
But again, the average person, they got no clue. Is that the city, the
That's
county?
the point I'm making.
Right. But what has to happen is this part right here. We used to have freedom schools. Freedom schools every.
Street media knows that Rolly is full of it, but he just wanted to have a civilized conversation with him. And you know, that's how you do it. If I seen Rolly, I would have a civilized conversation with him. I wouldn't insult him. I would speak to him to see what he has to say. So shout out to Street Media for having this conversation with Rolly.
Every Saturday, when black people said we're gonna fight segregation, the kids still went to school. They went to freedom schools.
Yes.
So the problem is there are a lot of people who are talking about what they want to be done. You're looking at the political process. But then when you have people who are trying to teach the political process, oh, do this, do that. Literally, my show is actually a class. It's not my intellectual. I was a month before she died. I said, I'm the only person in my family who's not a teacher. She says, oh no, well, you're a teacher. She says, I watch you. You actually teach. I never thought about what I do in that framework. And so we'll spend 30, 40, 45 minutes explaining to people politics. I guarantee you that people call Senator Vincent Hughes' office, and he's like, y'all, that's the county, that ain't me. I'm the state. No, that's the school district. No, that's the city. When we begin to have, when we need to actually have, again, whether it's community-based, whether it's youth-based, whether
I agree with you, Ms. Red Supreme. A lot of these schools are indoctrination camps. You know, it's not so much of it's not really based in education. It's indoctrination. If you really understand what I'm saying. But let's get back to the content. Just imagine if Kamala would have won. They would have been promoting more rainbow policies in schools to indoctrinate the children. They were gonna give free sex changes to transgenders, or whatever you want to call them. Look at all the funds that they was giving to that community. Why? Because they was here to promote an agenda, mainly in these public schools. So that's exactly what they are, indoctrination camps. They're not schools of education, they're schools of indoctrination.
Yep. So
yes.
It's fully incarcerated, based, whatever. We need to have all across our community. That's why I say you need to be youth-based. No. You can do whatever base. Because there's a bunch of people who are senior citizens who don't vote. The point I'm making is we have to be educating, informing, and enlightening so people know, oh, dang, wait a minute. All that's connected. There's a reason why them billionaire CEOs went to Saudi Arabia. Because Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE have sovereign investment funds. There's a reason why they were there. Right. What I'm saying is,
and another thing is this: you notice they never teach the children about Black Wall Street. They never teach these children about these Black communities and Black towns that, you know, Blacks built across the country.
Right.
Because it's not about education; it's about indoctrination.
Yep.
They don't teach them about July Perry. They really don't even teach the children about Malcolm X. So they're not educating your children; they're indoctrinating the children.
Yep.
They leave out so much history that they never teach them anything. The only thing they teach children about in America is, Blacks were slaves and Martin Luther King. Outside of slavery and Martin Luther King, they're not teaching the children no Black history in these schools. They're not going to get it in these schools. It is up to us to educate the children because they're not going to get it in these indoctrination camps, also known as the public school system or whatever you want to call it. They're just trying to teach your children how to get a job to work for these corporations and companies, but they're not educating them on real history.
Right.
We now have to understand political power is economic power, it's community power, it's grassroots power, it's all connected. So when somebody says, man, they get out here in my face that voting stuff, I'm like, you do know, they all know what that vote actually does. So we have to connect the dots. So whether you do it, whether I do it, whether she do it, and guess what?
Has to do it.
You ain't gotta like her. I'm fine. Go do what you do with your group. She gonna do what she do with her group. And come election day, everybody show up. Problem is when we spending more time, I don't like you, I don't like what you said. My whole deal is like, I'm like, go to work.
But that's the issue. That's the issue. Like a lot of these kids outside.
Just leave it, the name blank. I'm giving it as a gift. Just date sign, yeah.
A lot of these kids get criticized for the way that they behave and the things that they do. But we often say that the elders above us that's responsible for getting things done don't get them off. But they don't work together. So what happens is they don't work together to get the change that you speak about. All the things that you spoke about, that's the responsibility of our communities. That's fair.
But no,
that's the truth.
But you're making an assumption that what I talked about hasn't actually happened. It has, but it needs to be scalable.
Right. It's not being done. You got educated Black people that should be doing it.
Again, you're saying it's not being done. I'm saying is being done. Needs to be done on a larger scale.
Now, do you guys agree with that? What street media said is you don't have a lot of older Blacks organizing and mobilizing. You don't really have that. There's not enough unity amongst the older Black folks in our communities. Roland saying it is. We just need more of it. Give me your thoughts on that. I don't know.
There's a difference.
Right, and that's the problem.
Hold on. There's a difference between saying it's not being done and needs to be larger. I'm saying acknowledge that it's being.
That's the issue. Like a lot of these kids outside.
Just leave it, the name blank, I'm giving it as a
Date
gift.
sign. Okay, got it.
Just date sign, yeah.
A lot of these kids get criticized for the way that they behave and things that they do. But we often say that the elders above us that's responsible for getting things done don't get them off. But they don't work together. So what happens is they don't work together to get the change that you speak about. All the things that you spoke about, that's the responsibility of our communities that's failed.
But that's the truth. But you're making an assumption that what I talked about hasn't actually happened. It has, but it needs to be scalable.
Right. It's not being done.
No,
We got educated black people that should be doing it.
Again, you're saying it's not being done. I'm saying it is being done. It needs to be done on a larger scale.
Right.
There's a difference.
Right, and that's the problem.
Hold on. There's a difference between saying it's not being done and needs to be larger. I'm saying acknowledge that it's being done, and there are things that should be done you might not be aware of. Okay, there are things that I do,
Right.
or other people do. You don't need to be aware of.
Right.
There was a young brother. I didn't call him out. He's a perfect example. Young brother. If I could call his name, the brother we interviewed. I guarantee you know who he is. And he's a popular Instagram, YouTube channel here. My name's escaping me. Anyway, he was interviewing me.
He was here?
Yeah, he was here. He was interviewing. I he was interviewing me, and I was like, "Yo, you got way back there. Your audio's gonna be bad." No, seriously. I said you're using the microphone. No. They were like, "Yeah, man." He started talking to me. I was like, "Got it." And that's the number. I was like, "Send me your address." 4 days after I interviewed him, the DJI microphone showed up at his house. Did I have to buy it? No. Did he ask me to buy it? No. My point is, you're out shooting stuff. I need you to have good audio. I don't have to publicize any of that. But the point I'm making is, we have to acknowledge that work is being done. What we can't say is what's not being done as if it's not happening. What it is, this needs to be done on a broader scale.
I think you're missing my point. I understand that part. What I'm saying is the young
Blank as well.
generation coming under us that we rely on to pick this information up, they don't see it. This is but they don't see work. You know what they see? All they see is
What he's saying is there's a disconnect. Rolly keeps trying to make it seem like that there is work being done. A lot of the elders are bringing unity to get things done. And then he said it's being done, but we could have more of that. Well, some of us may say it's not being done at all, and if it is, it's being done on such a small scale that it's not recognizable to most of us that's really out here 10 toes down. I don't really think it's out there like that. And if you are doing something that's not recognized on a large scale, so that's what street media is trying to break down. Roland Martin is not connected to the grassroots people. He's not. He wants to believe that he is, but in reality, he is not. You got to be able to speak to the youth. You got to go to these communities. You got to be able to go to these schools. You got to be able to go to some of these neighborhoods so that you can connect with the people that's out there, the next up and coming generation. If you can't connect with them, then it's impossible for you to say that you're putting in any type of work, because at that point, you're not even reaching the people. You're just talking to people that's 50 and up. You can't change a nation by talking to people that's 50 and up. You got to reach the youth in order to make change in this country. And if you can't reach the youth, if you can't reach the grassroots, then you're not really doing nothing. You're just talking, regardless of what type of organization you claim to have.
Right.
Make sure that you guys bless the like button. Let's get some more people on that Cash App. Bless the show.
Looking at every year we should
GAIL. I can want to ask, go ahead.
Yeah, every year we graduate black students from HBCUs, and we don't never see them matriculate back into the
But that's hold on. You said, but we never see.
We don't see. And the young children don't see them.
Okay.
So this is what they're telling me. So they don't. Even though things are getting done, they hear you, but they don't see it being done. So they don't believe.
Okay, so each person, the young children you're talking about.
Yes.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Are they in places where those folks are?
Yes. You know, this is the black cities in America.
So you're telling me that those young people, are they?
The black church has been compromised with money and members. That's why they allow rainbow community members. They allow anybody to come into the black church. They accept anything. So the black church been compromised a long time ago. That's why you don't see a lot of black men at these so-called black churches.
Right.
Attending a church and they're not seeing any HBCU graduates.
Yes, they see them, but we don't see it matriculating to things that benefits us. Most of us got to go outside of ourselves to get things.
Okay, hold on. So let me walk you through something.
Yes.
First of all, are you aware that the average college graduate earns less? The average black college graduate earns less than a white person.
Yes, I'm aware.
Hold on. So when you say you're not seeing them doing things, first of all, an individual who just graduated, they try to find a job.
I'm not taking just in graduate. I'm saying it's every year.
No.
Yes.
Again,
I'm thinking in terms of in our communities, we don't see the things that you speak about and matriculate back into our communities. Like Philadelphia is the number one city of gentrification in this country.
Let me tell you.
I mean, we live in one of the blackest cities in America, which leads the nation in gentrification. I feel like black people at this point, we should be at the front.
No, hold on. I want you to unpack that.
Go ahead.
Why?
Huh? Why? Because we don't have home ownership. We're not in positions. We're not in a lot of political positions, but we're not in the position of the money.
No. Hold on. For the political position, that doesn't do with home ownership.
No. What I'm saying is we don't have. A lot of us don't have knowledge of money. We have black people.
Okay, stop right there. Hold on. Right there. You said a lot of us don't have knowledge of financial literacy.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, what community-based financial literacy programs currently exist?
I mean, you have them there, but let me just say this. Let me just say it this way, so that way you can understand what I'm saying. Because I don't want you to think that I'm challenging to the point where
No. It's not. First of all, no.
I think that the masses of people, because I'm a YouTuber too, when I'm around, they don't know. It's like three black communities. You got the elite class, you got the middle class, and then black folks. And most black folks don't know what the hell you're talking about, like what you're doing. It sounds good and make them feel good. They go along with just whatever you got to say. When y'all not around, they don't have no knowledge. So you don't see things that you spoke about that need to be done. They don't know how to do it.
Okay, and what I'm saying is, so now again, you have to unpack that. Okay, again, from an individual standpoint, the individual says, all right, these are the things that I want you to do. Or I want to gain more knowledge. First of all, an individual has to be able to say, I need to go seek knowledge. Okay, I can't make somebody seek knowledge. Right, that's first. Second thing is, when you talk about how do you begin to attack these basic problems. Okay, so I'm gonna talk about housing. Okay, black home ownership at its peak was about 45-46%. It's never hit 50%. Okay, so if I'm gonna deal with affordable housing, deal with housing, I now have to understand, how do I own a home? What are my requirements? But that's when it comes to jobs, when it comes to credit score, things along those lines. So I know for a fact it exists in Philadelphia. Operation Hope specific job is they want to increase their person's credit score by 100 to 150 points. No, I can't even get to home ownership till I deal with credit. Okay, I can't even. Again, you could aspire to do that, but if your stuff is a 480, all the way back. You're right. So my whole point.
Yeah, right. First thing you got to do is fix your credit before you think about home ownership, and you want to get loans and stuff like that. The first thing most of us got to do is fix our credit. A lot of us got student loan debt. A lot of us got credit card debt. Just a lot of bad decisions. A lot of us lack financial literacy. So I agree with that 100%. But let's get back to the content. Let's get some more people to bless that like button. It ain't nothing.
Like and subscribe to Front Line Blacc.
So now my whole deal is, if I believe there's a financial literacy issue, I'm now going to say, what are the existing resources that are in Philadelphia to deal with that issue? Now, if a person then says, but a person says, I don't know where they at. Okay, fine. Here's where.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, a lot of us have a lot of student loan debt, and that does put us in a bad position when we have a lot of debt. Anytime you have a large amount of debt, that's bad. You might be able to work around it, but at the same time, you still want to eliminate it.
And they are. Here are the places that do it. Now, that person still has to want to do that. So our responsibility is to provide access to the information. So when somebody says, this ain't happening.
Well, it's all about prevention. Of course, you need resources to fix credit, but at the same time, we want to stop our people from getting in all this financial debt in the first place. So The solution is prevention. I'll say it again. The solution is always prevention, so that you don't end up in that situation in the first place. Because once you get in it, it is hard as hell to get up out of it. Once you get up in it, it is hard as hell to get up out of it.
Right.
Carrying on.
Here's where it is. This ain't happening. Here's where it is. This ain't happening. Here's where it is. That person now has to decide, I need to go seek that information. So that's all I'm saying. So what I'm saying, so I don't, so here's what, so I operate micro, not macro. Okay. When I built my channel, they told me it wasn't working. I started with 150.
You're right about that. Prevention is always better than the cure. We want to stop people from getting in this debt in the first place. It's all about prevention. So of course, prevention is always better than the cure. If you can avoid this accident, avoid the accident. You know what I mean? If you've been in a wreck and you already been in an accident, now of course you need the cure. Of course you need some healing. But we want to help people to avoid those situations altogether. And it starts with financial literacy. It all starts with educating the people in the community. Right. Prevention is always better than the cure.
57,000. I actually started with 72,000. No. Following you. I'm trying to walk you through the thought process.
Well, you're right about that. He said the Latino. Well, they give a lot of those immigrant stuff, right? When they come here, they get a fresh Social Security card. They don't go off their credit because when they come to America, they get a clean slate. They get a fresh Social Security card. They're not going off of their credit score back in their homeland. They come to America and get a fresh start. That alone right there is a form of reparations. Like I'm gonna help you get a house. We're gonna clean your credit. We're gonna give you a brand new social. That is a form of reparations.
Yeah.
They're telling these people, come over here and we're gonna take care of everything. We're gonna give you medical. We're gonna give you dental. We're gonna give you housing. We're gonna give you job training. We're gonna give you loans to become a homeowner. We're gonna give you everything so that you win in America. And that's what the Biden administration was doing for these illegals when they crossed the border.
Yep.
It was like, yo, go bigger. Go. I'm like, no. We micro. I focus on one person. One. I don't spend my time trying to. Again, I can't get to macro unless I start micro. And so my whole deal is, if the folk you're talking to, this is what I would say to them. If 5 people sitting there saying, what's your name again? Tom. 5 people saying, Thomas, man, this is what I do all around the country. I go, what are the 3 things you care about the most? And what happened? Well, what do you mean? I said, give me the 3 things you care about.
I can tell you right off.
And then they tell me that. I go, okay. And a brother told me, hey, education. I went, do you have any children? He said, yes. I said, are they in school? He said, yes. I said, are you in the PTA? He said, no.
Exactly, school. Shout out to school. School said 2 things they should teach FBAU in school: credit and constitutional laws, your rights. Exactly. Shout out to Scoop, man. But like I said, Scoop is unfortunately, these schools are indoctrination camps.
Mm-hmm.
They're not camps of education, they are camps of indoctrination. The only thing they're gonna teach black people about the only thing they're gonna teach about black history is Martin Luther King and slavery.
Yeah.
And maybe Rosa Parks who sat in the front of the bus. That's as further as it's going to go when it comes to black history in this country. They're not going to educate your children with true black history. It is our job to educate them with that knowledge. It is our job to equip them with that knowledge.
Right.
Because they're not going to get that knowledge in college. They're not going to get it in these indoctrination camps at all. Which they'll teach them about Martin Luther King. They'll teach them a little bit about slavery.
That's about it.
That's as further as it goes. They're not going to give them financial literacy. They're not going to help you to elevate in your community. We got to figure out a way to do that ourselves. We can never depend on the system to uplift us, especially when you understand the history of this country. They wanted blacks to be a permanent underclass in this country. They fought hard so that blacks would remain a permanent underclass in this country. They're not going to equip your children with knowledge, or they're not going to feed them the real history of this country. They're not going to equip our children with the real knowledge that they need to succeed in here, in this country. They're not going to give them those tools. The real knowledge that they need. They're going to handicap. They're going to handicap them. They're going to cripple them. They're not going to give them. They're not going to give them the knowledge that they need to succeed here in America. They're not going to get it from these indoctrination camps at all.
At all.
If the school can't teach financial literacy, we got to teach financial literacy.
Yep.
Especially as the elders in this community. I'm talking about the people that's 35 and up. Wow. All the people that's 35 and up, you are now considered an elder. We can't depend on people in their 50s to educate the community. They didn't already had their chance. They didn't already had their time. Their time has came and went. I'm not saying that we need to disrespect them, but at the same time, a 20-something-year-old don't want to listen to people in that age group. They're not going to listen to them.
Right.
So we got to use our influence and our voice to educate the next generation of Black children. It is up to us to do that. It is up to us to equip them with the knowledge that they can't get in college.
That's right.
It's going to take the brothers. It's going to take a lot of these brothers with influence to do it, because one thing you got to know about the youth, they're not going to listen to somebody like Roland Martin. Mm-hmm. If Roland Martin went to an urban community, any urban community across the country, people under the age of 30, they're not going to listen to Roland. He might be able to reach some old Democrats. Yeah, he can reach the older people, but at the same time, it's like, we want to reach the youth. And if you can't reach the youth, then you're not going to get anywhere.
Right.
What's the first thing that Nazis and white supremacists do? They indoctrinate the next generation of upcoming white children, because they understand that the children are the soldiers of the community. They're the future of the community. So we got to educate the youth. And if we can't educate the youth, then what are we really doing? If we can't reach the up and coming generation, then we're not really doing anything, because all these people that's in their 50s, even 40s, even I can say late 30s, they've already been indoctrinated. It's too late for a lot of these people. They're not going to get it. They don't want to get it.
Yeah.
So if we can't reach the youth, then we really can't get too much done. Because what's the youth of preaching all this knowledge that you can't get in college? Like I said, the next generation of Black children need to understand finances. They need to understand credit. They need to have financial literacy. That's the only way they're going to make it in this country. Roly-poly Martin can throw a gang of events, but if you don't have young people showing up to listen to what you got to say, then you really ain't moving nothing. Why? Because the youth is the future.
Right.
I said, now I'm confused. I said, you say education is the most important issue. I said, hey, your kids are in the school. I said, but you're not in the PTA. Brother, look at me. He was fixated on problems. At no point did he say, acknowledge, I'm actually part of the solution.
That Roland is way more important than street TV. How is Rolly important? Because he got a lot of subscribers on social media, because he's more popular. This is why we got to make it to where people like Street Media and Red Supreme have voices in this community, because somebody like me, I could reach the youth. They'll listen to me.
Right.
They understand that I've been through a lot of things that they are going through now, which is why they can relate to me. See, I have the ability to connect with the grassroots. I have the ability to connect with the youth. They can relate to the things that I've been through. They can't relate to the things that Rolly went through. That's why when Rolly throws an event, it's only going to be people 45 and up showing up to those events. Rolly cannot reach the youth. He can't.
So this is what we
just made my point.
But here's my deal. I walked through, I said, so brother, it's real simple. You can't tell me that you care about education, you want things to be fixed, you want to go join the PTA. I had to challenge him to say,
Rolly can't listen. I can go to the projects or any hood across the country. Them youngsters gonna be able to relate to me. I might not be able to reach all of them, but I can reach some of them. Rolly can't reach none of them.
Right.
None of these grassroots people can relate to Rolly, especially the people under 30. Nobody in the grassroots community can relate to Rolly, especially the people that's under 30.
Yeah.
I I said, you are wanting somebody else out here to fix this thing. You want to put no skin in the game. And so when I'm talking on the show, and again, because I saw it with my parents, I'm sitting as a 9 and a 10-year-old as they having meetings in the living room talking about these new streets, these new street lights, these new systems.
They looking around.
No. They right, but they were a civic club. Okay, and then this is what they did. Okay, hold on. So we need to have these abandoned buildings. I'm telling you, this is what I witnessed when I was 10. It was like, okay, well, whose job is that? Is that the city or the county? Oh, that's the city. Okay. Who at the city? Go to our city council member? Who? Okay, this is the department. Okay. Who's this department? That's how it was. To get because we trying to get that abandoned house, take it down. Because turn to a crack house. Okay. That's basic fundamental. That's politics, but that's also community grassroots. Yes. But the only way that happened, because a group of people didn't complain about the problems, and they did something. And here's the whole deal. My parents never went to college. My parents are high school graduates. They came up at a different time. No. Hold up. You had? See, here you go. No.
You didn't need college education back in those days. You can still get a good job. A lot of brothers worked at warehouse factories, plant jobs, and still made a decent living, still was able to retire and to provide for their family. Yeah. So when you say, well, my parents didn't go to college, we're living in different times now, Rolly. Right? A lot of black people in the South back in those days would go to places like Detroit to work at one of those plants, to work at one of those motor vehicle warehouses where they
car factory,
where they would produce like motors and engines and parts for cars and stuff like that, because Detroit was the motor vehicle capital. Yeah. So you made decent money just working in those factories back in those days. You're not going to get decent jobs like that today, like you could back in the day. So we are living in different times. The reality of it is this: Rolly is disconnected from the grassroots. Yeah. I'm going to say it again. Rolly Poly is disconnected from the grassroots. He cannot reach the youth. Mm-hmm. Now, it's cool if he can reach the older folks that he want to reach, but Rolly does not have the ability to reach the youth. He does not have the ability to reach the grassroots. No, he does not.
No, here you go, Doc. No. I need to. Oh, that's the city. Okay. Who at the city? Go to our city council member? Who? Okay, this is the department. Okay. Who's this department? That's how it was. To get because we trying to get that abandoned house, take it down. Because turn to a crack house.
First of all hood people don't destroy the black people. You got a lot of people in the hood that are not in gangs. Mm-hmm. See, you coming up in here with this stereotypical bullshit. There's a ton of people who are from the hood who don't sell drugs that are not in gangs. So we're talking about reaching those people. Some of our people are a lost cause. I accept that. I say it again. Some of our people are a lost cause, and I accept that. That's why I speak to the ones that are reachable. That is why I speak to the ones who are teachable. If you're a lost cause, I won't waste my time with you.
Right.
Okay. That's basic fundamental. That's politics, but that's also community grassroots. Yes. But the only way that happened, because a group of people didn't complain about the problems, and they did something. And here's the whole deal. My parents never went to college. My parents are high school graduates. They came up at a different time. No, hold on.
He said the youth are the ones that are unreachable. It's a lot of youngsters who are not gang members.
Right.
A lot of these youngsters are into sports. A lot of these youngsters are into academics. So we can't say that all of the youngsters are just into gang and hood activities. That is a bold-faced lie. There's a bunch of youngsters out there that are reachable, that are teachable, who are looking for guidance. You wouldn't know that because you're not 10 toes down. You're not connected to the grassroots. You're just going off of stereotypes and false statistics.
Hold up. You add? See, here you go. No, here you go, Doc. See, you add? No. I need to understand something. Mom and Daddy didn't go to college.
Well, let me ask you.
No, hold up. Grandmother, grandfather didn't go to college. So what I'm saying is, what they cared about was, they cared about their family. Yes. Follow me here. I want you to follow what I'm walking through. They cared about.
He said, what are you talking about? I'm literally in the hood. It's a bunch of ignorant people like you in the hood. That's my point. There's a bunch of people like you that's stuck in the hood that are ignorant as hell.
Family, which means house. They cared about neighbors.
But at the same time, you got people who are in the hood that are not ignorant like you. You just happen to represent the ignorant people from the hood.
Right.
That's what I'm talking about. I speak English.
Street, block, neighborhood,
Whole thing.
city,
Yes.
state, country.
Especially our grandparents.
So follow me here.
Yes.
Country, state, city, neighborhood, blocks, street.
They never left part two.
We haven't, and again, I've literally challenged every D9 organization. This is what I see. I see you got D9.
What you don't understand is if you've seen Boys in the Hood, which most of us have, there's a bunch of trades in every hood, in every ghetto across America.
Yep.
There's way more trades in the hood than they portrayed in the movie.
Yep.
You know, everybody in the hood ain't doughboy.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's a bunch of Rickies and Treys in these ghettos across America.
Right.
Right? Let's be real about that.
You throw in Prince Hall Mason, Links, Eastern Star, that's 12. The reality is those 12 groups can pick a month where they say we're gonna show up in mass here. But when I throw it out there, I did end with this here. Not what y'all gonna do. I said, and so again, we have to but here's my whole point though. We still have to challenge people and lay it out and push them to say change will not happen if you tweet about it, post.
You're too ignorant for this conversation, man. The reality of it is you're way too ignorant for this conversation, man.
Right.
About it, you got to be about it.
So let me end it here. Now, again, I think about the conversation. Me, at 49, I went around, like I said, for the last 7 years. I've been doing part of political stuff, even set with the mayor, going to events with the mayor. Yes, yes. My overwhelming issue that I have is 9%. When I'm there, sometimes we feel like some of our educated, and not all of them, but some of our educated.
And what you don't understand is a lot of gangbangers are not gangbanging no more. You know, especially in certain cities, man. A lot of gangbangers are trying to get into trades. They're tired of doing time in prison. You don't speak for the hood. You speak for the people who are still stuck on that certain mindset. There's a lot of people who don't have that mindset that's in the hood, bro.
Right.
You know, it's a lot of kids in the hood that are into sports. There's a lot of kids in the hood who want to go to college. There's a lot of kids in the hood who want to be a lot of different things besides street ninjas.
Right.
So we can't just box everybody in the hood in one category. I've met tons of people from the hood that are reachable.
Right.
Who are not so far gone to who are not just so far gone to the point to where you cannot reach them. Now, some of them are, and those are the people that I tend to avoid. If I can't reach you, I avoid you. I won't even waste my time talking to you.
Right.
Class where we don't give a damn about something.
That's true. No, that's true.
You're right. So what I'm saying is this, and this is what I'm saying. When we have our man-to-man meetings, right? A lot of them don't have the education or understanding of how to fix their problem. Right. And then the ones above us, the stick man, layman, and what they work for, when they get in those seats, they don't give a damn. Got it? They don't give a damn. So in your speech, everything that you said, you know what they do? What happens is they look that you guys as the gatekeepers of the vanguards.
But again,
they don't have knowledge. That's all I'm saying.
Right.
And shout out to Lim Hendricks. Lim Hendricks said, Roland just explained how the Latinos influence community business and push us out. They get their people on the city council by any means. Yeah, we seen it in Los Angeles. How you had Nuri Martinez and them taking away programs and funds from Black communities and giving all the funds to their community. So yes, we witnessed this firsthand in Los Angeles. We've seen it for decades. But let's get back to the content.
What I'm saying is, when you say they don't have knowledge, you need to give them knowledge.
That's what we do.
And last point, you give them knowledge. Then, when there's the meeting, when you bring 200, 300, 400, 500 with you, no. I guarantee you, if 300 cats rolled up to a meeting with Senator Hughes, no.
I got you.
No. I want you to understand how a politician thinks. That's 300 potential voters. Now, to that point, some young folks roll up on Jesse Jackson Jr. He was in Congress. Man, you don't do this. We don't vote you out. This is exactly what Junior said. Junior said, y'all gonna kiss my ass. He said, and they were like, what? He said, you see that building right there? It was a high rise. It was a high rise inserted. It was a high rise. He said, you know what's gonna happen on election day? All them folk in that building, in walkers, in scooters, crutches, they gonna come vote for him. They gonna come vote. He said, show your ass up at the polls. Now listen to me. Now, they were mad. That's right. What we have to do is, we gotta move our people from complaining to action. And if they don't know, and we gotta educate them, that's what we gotta do.
Gotcha. Thank you.
All right, Tom. Good luck with you, bro.
Hey, we're gonna do this.
All right, man.
Shit.
Make sure that you guys bless the like button. Yeah, man. That was street news. That was street media TV. Speaking of Roly Poly Martin, man. You know what I mean? And yeah, that was it right there, man. I wanted to share that with y'all, man.
DJ Pearson, where is David Harris? Where is Lowndes County?
Okay. I had enough of Roly Poly. So as you can see, he's full of complete shit. He talks all this shit, but he ain't really doing nothing but caping for the Democrats, like we're always saying. So the hell with Roly Poly Martin. And anything that Mug has to say, but shout out to Street Media TV for pulling up on that fool and asking them hard-hitting questions. Let's see what the response would be, and that's per normal. It was the same old Democratic celery. Oh, y'all need to stop complaining and just go out and vote. Vote for what? We're not getting nothing tangible for our vote, voting for the Democrats, Roly Poly. So why would we continue to keep doing that? So shout out to Street Media, shout out to Red Supreme TV. I've been on his program before. He showed us love, so we show him love back. So moving along, we got Rodney Hinton's lawyer's interview about his mental health. So the brother that unalived the police officer after his son was killed by another police officer in Ohio. His lawyer did an interview about the brother's mental health. So we're going to hear that next. Shout out to Lisa Cabrera. She's going to give us the update on that. Once I find the video. Give me 1 second. I got like multiple cues set up. Here we go.
An interview with Fox 19, and he gets into some details about what happened and the state of mind that Rodney Hinton was in after viewing the video of his son being unalived by a cop. And, you know, you're just going to see him just talk about things like the insanity plea that he intends on using, and, you know, and why Rodney Hinton should be able to use that because of his past history, which is recorded, of mental illness. So y'all, let's get into this.
Down for a one-on-one interview with Hinton's defense attorney, Clyde Bennett. We talked about everything from the deadly shooting of Hinton's son and his mental state at the time of the deadly crash to Bennett taking him on as a client. What was going on with him when he was behind the wheel? Is it your contention that, do you admit that he was behind the wheel? Because officers said that he was behind the wheel. There's video of him behind the wheel, and that they took him out and in fact triple checked to make sure that he was the one that was behind the wheel?
Based on my acquaintance with this case, it appears that he was a person that was driving a car.
Okay.
Yes.
In mental capacity, where was he? What's
He was
going to be
out of
the case?
his mind. He was not in his right mind. Let me spell that out. That means that I'm doing something, but I don't know the wrongfulness of what I'm doing because I'm out of touch with reality. That's what insanity is. You can be insane and still present like a physically normal person, and you won't know that that person is insane, but for their actions and but for an evaluation of their brain. This man had a diagnosed, documented mental illness that is recognized by healthcare providers, and he was receiving medication for the mental diagnoses. That constitutes a defect at this point.
So this is going to be not guilty by reason of insanity?
Potentially, yes. That's basically from what I've seen so far, and I haven't gotten all of the evidence. Really, I haven't gotten any evidence from the government. I've got it from my investigator. But from what I've seen so far, this is what it appears to be. Yes.
Okay, I want to back up on something that you initially said. You said unjustifiably killed. His son was unjustifiably killed. People would take issue with that as well. And that is going to be something that we're going to be looking at because there is 6 seconds of very shaky video.
Right.
So what is your contention there?
When I say unjustifiably killed, I'm speaking through the lens and eyes of my client.
Okay.
So in his mind, when he sees the video and he sees his son being killed, he thinks it's unjustifiable. It's horrific. It's tragic. Do you know what it's like to see your son or daughter being killed?
No, thank God I don't.
Your bloodline? I know you don't. I didn't mean to offend you when I said that. I have a son. If I saw my son being killed by somebody, I don't know how I would behave. And I don't have a mental history. Well, some might argue that I do, but I don't. So my point is that type of event would trigger a normal person, let alone a person with a history of mental illness.
Can you walk me through that a little bit more? Taking into account what the family has said in your investigation as to what happened at that point. So he watched the video. He had to be driven home because he was so distraught. He was taken back to wherever that was, wherever they watched the tape.
To get his vehicle.
To get his vehicle.
Correct.
And then at that point, did he go straight over to UC?
He's going home.
He was going home.
Which would take you that route.
Okay. So he was going home, but on the way home is when he took a detour and went to UC.
No, that is not a detour.
Okay, what was it?
That's on the way home.
Okay, so he's driving on the way home past UC.
Correct.
And what happens?
There's a claim that when he was on Martin Luther King Drive, he stopped his car and he accelerated and struck a police officer, or Hamilton County Deputy Sheriff. That's the claim, and that's what the video depicts.
And tell me more about that investigation, your side and what the family says and what he says about that.
The family doesn't know what happened then because they were not with him. So, but based on the information that I have, that is a claim that is made by the government. Now, have I verified for a fact that that has actually happened? No, because I haven't seen all of the discovery. But based on what I've seen, that is the claim.
Okay.
What I do know is his state of mind, based on speaking to family members and based on speaking to him.
And you've talked to him since?
I've tried to.
Does he talk?
I can't
without giving us any information.
I would be giving you attorney-client privilege, especially when not guilty by reason of insanity or competence is an issue for me to discuss whether or not I believe he was competent. I'm not going to get into that.
Okay. Now, let me just say, this conversation was about an hour long. And if you're sitting at home and you're thinking the question, I probably asked that one. So it's coming up. Okay. Coming up at 6, he's going to address dozens of sheriff deputies that were in Hinton's court hearing and his client's current mental state, and also whether or not the people out in the community can swallow the pill of not guilty by reason of insanity. It's all coming up.
Jury has indicted Rodney Hinton Jr. on 2 counts of aggravated murder, 1 count of murder, and 2 counts of felonious assault in the death of retired Sheriff Deputy Larry Henderson.
Now, ahead of the indictment, I sat down for a one-on-one interview with Hinton's defense attorney, Clyde Bennett. We talked about everything. It was like an hour-long conversation, from the deadly shooting of Hinton's son to his mental state at the time of the deadly crash. Here's a portion. When you walked into the courtroom and there were 30-plus officers lining the courtroom, and they said it was to show their respect for Officer Henderson, a lot of people would say that was an intimidation factor. for Hinton, Mr. Hinton. How is it gauged by him and by you?
Anybody looking at that would say one or two things or both things. It's a short support for the Deputy Larry Henderson. His colleagues are disheartened. They're sad by his departure or his demise, and I would expect them to support him. But also, one can look at it and say, this is a show of force. This is threatening. This is intimidating. So there's two ways of looking at it, and I think both ways are reasonable when you construe what you saw in that courtroom when there was 30 deputies. I can understand it from the Hamilton County Sheriff's Department view, but I can also understand it if that was my son or that was my brother or my uncle or a relative with 30 or 40 police officers 2 or 3 feet away from him when he's in court seeking justice.
Not guilty by reason of insanity is a tough pill to swallow for a lot of people. And in this, with this absolutely innocent deputy who was plowed down and killed, and he is an exceptional man from everything that I hear as well.
He's a very exceptional man. I didn't know him personally, but I've seen Deputy Henderson more than once, and I've been in contact with him more than once over the years. And let's be clear, I feel for Deputy Henderson, his immediate family, his extended family, his colleagues and fellows at the Hamilton County Sheriff's Department. I feel for that community and that family. And the Hintons feel bad for what transpired or what happened to Deputy Henderson. They pray for the Henderson family, and I pray for that family too. But I had to compartmentalize my feelings and do my job. But that doesn't mean that I don't have feelings and that my clients don't have feelings for what happened to Deputy Henderson, because we do.
Is there anything that you think is important that we need to address?
No.
Because you can't go into any more detail about the mental illness, which is what I would want to know about.
I can't. That would be divulging attorney-client privilege.
Because the
at
thing
this
is,
stage of the legal process.
as I've said it twice, not guilty by reason of insanity makes a lot of people angry.
All right. Why?
A cop-out. It's a cop-out.
It's a cop-out if it isn't real.
Right. And that's the thing. Proving the fact that it's real.
Right.
It's like a court case in its own.
The doctor proves that it's real. The medical records proves that it's real. His conduct proves that it's real. And I think that's forthcoming.
Tell me what it was like when you were talking to the family about watching him getting shot by police officers. What was it like in that room? What did they say? How did everyone react to it?
My focus and my concentration was on the reception of the information or the video and the perception of the video from my client, Mr. Hinton. So I really didn't ask about the other individuals and how they received it and what impact, if any, it had on them. I was concerned with Mr. Hinton. So I can't tell you what the other people.
Did he tell you anything on how he was?
No.
Nothing.
No.
He hasn't commented on it at all.
No.
I don't know how much privilege that is.
No. That's as much as I'm probably going to give you, but no, he didn't tell me about that.
Okay.
I don't think he's in the condition to tell me.
Is he in the condition that he shows any remorse or anything right now?
No, I think he's in a bad condition, in a bad state right now. And I think he has the residual effect of his mental illness. You don't get rid of mental illness. It doesn't go away. So the ruse, the fraud, the temporary insanity, I was upset. And then 5 minutes later, you realize what you did when you were wrong, or you're hanging out, doing whatever you typically would do, and you're normal. That's usually a fraud. This man is still under the influence of his mental defect and condition. So I haven't been able to get the information I need from him.
Okay. Let me just reiterate. I said this at 5 o'clock. This interview was like an hour long, and we addressed a lot of different issues. He talked about everything that I asked him. We talk about mental illness a lot and his plea. Now, I just reached out to Clyde Bennett just moments ago following the indictment. He did give me a statement about the death penalty. He says, quote, "It is very easy to obtain an indictment, particularly when you present evidence to a grand jury on the heels of an emotional, provocative, tragic incident. As a matter of law, an indictment is not indicative of guilt. In fact, the judge tells a jury that the indictment means nothing. He went on to say, in this case, the indictment does not change the facts, circumstances, and events of that unfortunate day. It does not change the fact that Mr. Hinton has a history of mental illness. Mr. Hinton experienced a psychiatric episode triggered by watching a video of his son being shot to death. And that because of his mental defect, he did not know the wrongfulness of his conduct when he engaged Deputy Henderson.
Ladies and gentlemen, you know, he really does have a good case. There's people in this country, every time they get in trouble, they always go to screaming mental illness. And in many cases, they don't even have a prior history of mental illness. And they seem to get off all the time because we know this system is very unfair and unjust. Now, here you have a father that obviously loved his son, and he had to sit and watch his son on video get his life taken. And so he was already dealing with mental issues. And I'm glad his attorney spoke out about that. You know, it gives us more detail about him having a prior record of mental illness. And so I think that's why it makes sense on why those cops were in there trying to intimidate him. You know, because at the end of the day, they know he's got a strong case. When it comes down, he's got real mental illness, not mental illness because I got in trouble with the law. That's what the rest of these people seem to have. But he's got real recorded mental illness, and that's going to make all the difference in the world. But we know in this system, the courts are unfair, and you know, they'll even break the law to put a black man behind bars. We know that too. So we'll see what happens in this case, but I kind of agree with his lawyer with his history. You know, I don't see how they can easily dismiss that he might have had an episode, and that's why he did what he did. But y'all tell me what you think about this interview that Rodney Hinton's attorney did with Fox 19. Just tell me your thoughts in the comment section. Please leave your
comment and like and subscribe to Front Line Blacc News. I agree with the lawyer. The lawyer did a damn good job explaining his client's mental history and how he couldn't basically plead insanity because he was out of his mind when he allegedly unalived that deputy. So I think he has a good case, a good defense. So moving along, the dump decide that he not only was going to pardon the J6ers, but he going to give the family of Ashley Babbitt $5 million. Originally, they were trying to get $50 million. The dump decided he was going to give him $5 million settlement. So, Torian will give us a quick update on that. So, Torian.
Have somewhat good news and bad news. The somewhat good news is that Ashley Babbitt's family will not get that full $30 million that they were trying to get as a settlement payment for her death. They're only going to get a measly $5 million. The bad news is the fact that they're getting any money at all because of what she did. Let's keep in mind, this woman committed a criminal act by what she did, and the fact that they keep trying to paint her as some kind of a victim is absolutely diabolical. And what's even more diabolical is the fact that they keep trying to paint Michael Byrd as a suspect and some kind of villain, and how people, especially on Twitter, are still trying to get this man charged for her death, even though that's definitely not going to happen. I knew that this was going to go down because if you remember or may not, they quietly did this last year as putting it out there that they were going to go for some kind of huge settlement in her death. And then fast forward to now, or more recently, and I actually talked about this a short while ago, when Trump said that Ashley Babbitt was like a hero to him. She was a huge MAGA supporter. She was a fan of his, and in return, he was a fan of hers. Keep this in mind. This man is a fan of a person who went and basically was a part of an invasion on one of the most recognized political spots in the world, not just in the establishment that is the United States, but around the world. Everybody looks at that Capitol building and knows exactly what it is and where it is. And this settlement right here, this $5 million that her family has received, is coming out of the Trump administration. But you know what? I'm not surprised. Felon recognizes felon at the end of the day. Furthermore, I don't want to hear another person on the anti-George Floyd train to utter one more word about his family getting that huge settlement from Minneapolis based on what happened with him back in 2020. Because if Ashley Babbitt, someone who did and committed an actual criminal act that led to her demise, can get $5 million on her behalf to her family when they were trying to go for $30 million, then George Floyd's family has every right to the compensation that they received.
Okay. So yeah, they're gonna pay down Ashley Babbitt's family $5 million. Some bullshit. But that's what the dump regime is all about. You know, pardoning motherfuckers that really committed criminal acts. Ashley Babbitt was told repeatedly not to jump through that damn window. And what she do? She decided to jump through the window and she got shot and killed. She was warned. I ain't got no pity. But they gonna give her family $5 million settlement. All right, moving along. These Democrats have been getting arrested for storming these ICE facilities. Professor Blacktooth gonna give us an update on the ISIS courthouse arrest. Is this fair or foul?
Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the professor, and this is the moment of truth.
Cell phone video shows ICE agents taking a man away in cuffs moments after his asylum hearing.
One of the biggest issues that's plagued American bureaucracy for the longest time has been a lack of interagency cooperation. For those of you old enough to remember, you'll recall that the main gripe that W and others used to excuse away, explain why the 9/11 attacks happened was that the agencies weren't talking to one another. And hence, W had the bright idea of creating yet another layer of bureaucracy called the Department of Homeland Security, as well as another one, the so-called National Intelligence Director. Currently, that's Tulsi Gabbard. The entire idea, I suppose, the working theory was that this is going to make it where these agencies who previously competed with each other and hid secrets from each other as they tried to compete for federal funding, well, now they would have no choice but to cooperate because they had somebody over them. How well has that been working? Your guess is as good as mine. But one of the organizations that the Department of Homeland Security is supposed to be over was ICE, Immigrations and Customs Enforcement. After all, the terrorists who carried out the 9/11 attack were not homegrown terrorists. These were foreigners. So, of course, ICE should be under the Department of Homeland Security. But how's things been going since the 9/11 attacks? What has the Department of Homeland Security been doing to secure the homeland? Not much. Even during W's administration, we were seeing excuses being made by the federal government for why they weren't doing anything regarding the tsunami of people who were flooding across the border. And it's continued all the way up into the Biden years. Americans were told that there just wasn't much that could be done about it. This was just the natural movement of human beings, and small things like borders simply cannot and should not be used to try to stop these natural processes. And both parties recited this. It wasn't just the Democrats. Democrats and Republicans alike were using the exact same line. And that's part of the reason why the Orange Man has such charm and appeal to certain people in America. Because people were looking and going, man, the U.S. government can't get anything done. Either party, these guys can't do anything. And so the orange man came in, sharp elbows and all, and said, I can do something. As a matter of if people have to choose between a loudmouth bigot who at least is able to do something, as opposed to the phony, genteel, sophisticated swamp creatures in D.C., well, they'd much rather choose an uncertain something than a certain nothing. And I don't think it's a coincidence at all that ICE has started posting up and waiting for illegals to come to the courthouse for their court hearings and arresting them there. I think that's deliberate. You see, the entire legal loophole that immigration activists have been claiming is that when a person comes into the country illegally, all they have to do is make some sort of claim of asylum. Usually all they got to do is just say, there's gangs back in my home country and I'm terrified of them. That's usually the excuse that covers all. And then they'll be allowed into the U.S. and told, you got to come back and talk to an immigration judge on such and such a date. That's what's been going on for years and years. So every time the immigration debate would start, you would have people who say these people are in the country illegally, and then you would have some, usually, though not always, leftists who would say, no, they're not in the country illegally. They do have legal status. So what do you mean? They're not in the country illegally. They don't have a green card or anything. Well, their legal status is that they have a court hearing, and that allows them to be in the country pending the outcome of the court hearing. They could be rejected at the court hearing, in which case they could be deported. But what's much more likely to happen is the immigration judge will say, well, you're already here. You've been here a few months already. We might as well go ahead and let you hang around. And when asked why they keep doing this, even the immigration judges basically say, well, there's simply not enough capacity to actually deport people. So we might as well go ahead and tell them they can stay. In fact, Kilmer Abrego, he's the illegal alien who's down in El Salvador, who a lot of the white leftists are making a big deal about. That's exactly what happened with him. He was not legally in the country, but they were saying, well, he had legal status. We're waiting on his court case. Yeah, but the court already decided to kick the can down the road, and Trump decided, well, we're running out of road. And I don't think that that's any sort of coincidence that they got ICE hanging out at these courthouses. That loophole has been the main thing that people have been using to get around the law. And it makes them subject to not very much. But now Trump is enforcing the law and saying that, hey, if these people don't show up for their immigration court hearings, then that whole loophole no longer applies. And just to make sure that people get the message, we got ICE sitting around here. We got these much publicized stalking raids that have been taking place, waiting at these courthouses. And of course, people aren't showing up. Once they see that, they're going to be like, ooh, then I'm definitely going to get deported. Well, the word around the campfire these days is that Trump's support among Latinos is down, and the white media is making much hay about that. In fact, it seems that Trump is starting to embark upon a new era of interagency cooperation in the federal government. He's got HUD and ICE working together to go after anybody who might be an illegal alien trying to get government benefits for housing and such. Now, this is something that I spent a number of years talking about. When people come to the United States illegally, there's three things that they all look for: a source of income, a place to stay, and a bank that they can use in order to send their money back to their home countries, or at least have a place where they can put the money that they get being in the United States working illegally. These are the three legs of the stool that props up illegal immigration. Everybody knows this. So you've got these unscrupulous employers, these morally bankrupt banking institutions, and these low-down landlords all working together to get their piece of the pie out of the huge amounts of money that are possible in this illegal immigrant economy. That's what's happened here. It's no secret that these have been the three main factors that have enabled people to come to the United States and be able to, quote unquote, hide in the shadows. They haven't been hiding at all. They've been working out in the open for unscrupulous employers. They've been going to the banks and depositing their money happily and cheerfully. And they've been going home to whatever apartment complex or house that they've been renting. And then they actually are allowed to actually buy houses with government money. That's what's been going on here. It certainly couldn't have happened without the U.S. government and these local governments supporting it and funding it and propping it up. That's just a fact. Now, apparently there were some folks who had told themselves that this was simply going to go on forever, and that nothing was ever going to be done because nothing had been done in so long. Whether or not this is a bump in the road or a new beginning remains to be seen. But one thing that is evident is that Trump's support among Latinos has taken a hit. How big a hit, we don't know. Keep in mind, this information comes from the left corner of the white media. And while both the white left and white right only marginally disagree over generally shared aims, when it comes to how they compete to who's holding the whip, they can be adept at taking shots at each other within bounds, of course. So how much of a hit Trump's Latino support has taken is unknown, but one thing is sure, it has definitely taken a hit. And the reason why is there's a huge amount of confusion by Latin American immigrants. The reason why is there do happen to be factions and divisions even amongst themselves. The simple reality is a lot of them thought to themselves that when Trump was talking about getting rid of illegal aliens, they were thinking, oh, he's talking about the people who we don't like. If you happen to be from Mexico, you're like, well, we don't like those Guatemalans, so that's probably who he's talking about. And if you're from Guatemala, you go, well, we don't like those El Salvadorans, so that's probably who he's talking about. And if you're from Central America, you say, well, he's probably talking about those people from Chile or Colombia or Venezuela. That's what everybody does. They look around and go, oh, it must be talking about you. Surely he can't be talking about me. And the orange man has said, I'm talking about all of you. You've had black people who have been trying to explain to people south of the border for the longest time that whole little game that they play down there, where basically they allow a bunch of people with brown skin to call themselves white. That's a little trick that they learned from the Catholic Church a long time ago. That kind of confusing the people that you want to suppress. That kind of thing may go down there. But as soon as you get north of the border, these folk up here, they're not going to play that game. They'll go ahead and let you claim to be white on driver's licenses or on job applications or school forms. But at the end of the day, they know exactly what their definition of white is. And it's none of those folk who happen to have brown skin south of the border. Black folks have been saying this, and nobody's been listening. And at this point, it's all talked out. And speaking of talk, all black folks should remember during the failed Biden administration, one of the things he said almost as soon as he got into office was he started lecturing black people and saying, in the black community, you better find a way to start working with the Hispanic community. Well, black people have already been trying to do that for decades. Black people were the ones who created the phrase black and brown. And it took a while for a lot of black folks to finally figure out that black people were the only ones invoking that phrase. Nobody else was. Well, the way things are going now, Biden, or at least the Democratic leadership, they ought to be saying that the Hispanic community now needs to find a way to cooperate with the black community. It would certainly be a first. But of course, he's not saying that. Nobody ever needs to get on code with us. Nobody ever says, hey, you got to start getting on black folks' good side. You got to start finding ways to work with black people. You're going to be needing these guys' support. Whether it be the white media or the white political parties or any of these so-called activist groups, all of them are on the same page. Then when it comes to black people, well, you don't ever sit there and say anything that prioritizes black people. You don't say anything that makes it clear that people need to listen to black people, much less act on what black people say. So that's the reason why we've been seeing a number of people who have been saying, where the world's the black community at? Where's the black community at? Well, the black community is working on ourselves. That's what we're doing. We tried to forge a black fill-in-the-blank alliance with anyone and everyone, and everybody made it very clear they didn't want to be allied with us. And that being the case, we said, okay, fine, then, we'll take our gifts and move on. And that's exactly what we've done. And you know what? I recommend that everybody else do the same thing, too. I think everybody should be working on themselves. Though with ICE and DHS staging these surprise raids hither, thither, and yon, it's going to be a little bit more difficult for some people than others. But make no mistake, folks, there is one thing that does need to be mentioned here. White power is hazing Latinos as a group. Yes, there's going to be a lot of people who wind up being deported, but not all of them are. Let's be realistic about that. Ultimately, white supremacy at that point is going to resume its prior stance. Black people are the enemy. White power has no illusions about that, and it's not going to forget about that. No matter who they're hazing today, they will always be coming after us tomorrow. And the same people who you see right now making noise about ICE and DHS, as soon as white supremacy lets up on them a little bit, as soon as it says, well, we might give you a pat on the head if you at least go along with us rhetorically, they will be the same ones who resume all of that anti-black rhetoric that the Nuri Martinez's and the Kevin DeLeons and others were spouting out there in LA. Having seen what white power is willing to do, they're going to catch a convenient case of amnesia when it comes to all of these grievances that they have about ICE today. And a lot of the agitating that they make to, let's go ahead and see about trying to find ways to bring the family members over, a lot of that's going to start to become a lot more quiet too. But what isn't going to be quiet is ultimately they're going to be deciding, hey, the best way to get in the good graces of white power is let's renew our aggression against black people. At the very least, hopefully we can get some of the heat off of ourselves. That's where this is ultimately going to go long term. So no matter what you may be seeing on the television today, just keep that in mind, because that train is never late. And what little token rhetorical resistance that there might have been from immigrant groups, well, there's going to be less of that in the future. After all, they got some new pet issue that they'll be moving on to. But in the meantime, no matter how hot this summer may get, I don't mind at all seeing plenty of ICE in the streets. Good day and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors. Atu Hammond, Neil Safir, Jerlene Harris, Leonard Cottingham, and Suleiman Alaji. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.
Thank you, Professor Black. True. I agree wholeheartedly with everything you said. Yeah, them court dates is definitely a loophole, and we hear that from these Democratic mayors like Johnston. Oh, they just need to they can stay into their court date, and then when the court date comes up, they avoid the court date so they can stay here even longer. So I'm glad the dump is seeing past that loophole, getting around that loophole, and getting these mothers the fuck up out of here. So yeah, expect more ice raids all summer long. Apparently, we had one here in Denver today. We'll cover that later, though. We're getting to this. These damn Democrats, they still crashing out for these goddamn illegal immigrants. So some more of them got arrested. Trying to stop ICE agents from arresting illegal migrants, allegedly. So TD Media Group's gonna give us an update on that.
This is irritating me so much, all this theater. So that, once again, that's the woman that's being arrested, and she drops to her knee and she's screaming like a crazy person. She's screaming like a crazy person. There's so much more that I want to say, but you know, I'm trying to keep it as professional as possible. She's screaming like a crazy person. Let's just carry on with the video. What's going on, everybody? Thank you all for joining me today. If you haven't already, please make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new to the channel, and most importantly, please make sure that you are following me on Telegram at TD Media Group to help circumvent social media censorship and shadow banning. And with the introduction out of the way, let's get into today's news. And today we have to head on over to Rochester, Massachusetts. Normally when we head to Massachusetts, we're talking about the DNC lunatic who's running Boston, Michelle Wu. But today we have to address a different DNC lunatic, a city councilwoman by the name of Etel Haxhiaj. She is a city councilwoman out of the city of Rochester. Why are we talking about her today? We're talking about her today because this is another example of a DNC lunatic who has put hands on and assaulted, in my opinion, and allegedly federal agents who are attempting to arrest illegal immigrants in this country, particularly those who have committed violent crimes. We all know the foolishness of LaMonica McIver that took place in New Jersey at the Delaney Detention Center, but we now have this situation here that occurred in Rochester, Massachusetts. Now, this isn't a new story. This occurred roughly around, I want to say, close to 2 weeks ago. And I've been aware of this story for quite some time now. I just haven't had an opportunity to address it yet. But I say all that to say this. I'm very surprised that this has not gotten the level of attention that a LaMonica McIver got, because this was equally just as absurd. And it should get the attention that LaMonica McIver got as well, because something has to be done and examples have to be made that you cannot put hands on a federal agent who was attempting to conduct an arrest of a violent illegal immigrant criminal. This is completely ridiculous. And this is another situation like what we saw with LaMonica McIver, where this city councilwoman created a situation making the arrest and attempted arrest that much more dangerous and toxic than it needed to be, in which now everybody's life is potentially being put in danger because you've essentially incited a riot, as we're getting ready to read here, but then we're going to get into the body cam footage next. We have 2 sets of body cam footage that I want to go through very quickly. But first, let's jump into this article right here. As you can see, Etel Haxhiaj assaulted officers and incited chaotic melee over ICE arrest of violent illegal immigrant. Let's get into this article right now. A Massachusetts police union is calling for charges against a city council member who allegedly assaulted local and federal officers and incited a caught on video chaotic protest of an immigration and customs enforcement arrest of an accused violent criminal. The aggressive protest saw as many as 25 neighbors wailing and chanting, "No warrant," and not the mother. Boo-hoo. Oh my God, don't get me started on family separation nonsense. Anyways, sorry. Okay. With the daughter of the apprehended Ferreira de Oliveira jumping in front of the unmarked ICE vehicles while holding her own infant in an attempt to stop the arrest, video show. We're going to get into that. These people love engaging in theatrics. So this name here, Ferreira, if I'm saying the name right, Ferreira de Oliveira. This is the illegal immigrant that's being arrested. And what occurs within this whole melee is that her daughter jumps into the mix of all this while holding onto her infant. Obviously, in the video that we're getting ready to watch, the infant's face is blurred out, but it just goes to show how psychotic these people actually are, because what we're getting ready to see next in the police body cam footage is complete chaos. Why would you put your child in danger like that? As far as I'm concerned, you know, that child should be taken away from the mother. When you want to talk about family separation, there's sometimes family separation needs to happen. And if you're that boneheaded, to say the least, to jump into a chaotic protest incited by a DNC lunatic city councilwoman, and you're boneheaded enough to jump into that with your infant in hand, as far as I'm concerned, you probably shouldn't be a mother. But let's get through this article, and then we're going to get to the police body cam footage, because I know that's what you guys want to see. So let's get through this first. Etel Haxhiaj, who represents Rochester's 5th District, helped incite the mob into assaulting ICE officers and cops during the Department of Homeland Security's apprehension in a suburban neighborhood that escalated out of control Friday, the Rochester Police Patrolmen's Union said in a statement obtained by the Post. Etel Haxhiaj injected aggression towards the police during the incident. The counselor participated in the conduct of the unruly crowd and eventually assaulted both Rochester police and federal law enforcement officers on scene, the union said in a statement. Her behavior also emboldened others to act in this manner. Counselor Haxhiaj, in our opinion, broke her oath and these ethical laws, and in doing so, she put the safety of our officers and our citizens at great risk. So now let's get into the police body cam footage next. Like I said, there's about 2 separate angles that we're going to get into. We'll start with this one first, and let me pull that up for you right now.
Guys, you gotta step out.
Take her. Sit down. No, this is my constituent. No, you don't touch me. Do not touch me. I need you to not touch me. Federal arrest. Do not touch me.
The woman that she's holding on to, that's the woman that came into the mix of it, holding her daughter in hand. Like I said, there should be some family separation that occurs because you're a lunatic for entering into this kind of madness with your infant in hand. And you're going to see that more in the next video afterwards.
Come on. Come on. Let's go. Come on. Please don't touch me. No,
You're obstructing federal arrest right now. Do you understand that?
Let's go.
You can be charged. We could absolutely. Step off the vehicle.
I understand. No, I'm the district council. How do I touch you? No, you don't touch me.
Don't fucking touch me.
Don't touch
This is all theater, man. I mean, why is this woman? That's the woman that they came to arrest. She's holding on to a baby bottle, screaming, why? This is all theater. This is to garner sympathy over the fact that she's getting arrested and is probably going to get deported, as she should, right? As she most likely should. She's sitting here holding a baby bottle, screaming, why, with this idiot DNC lunatic city councilwoman standing in a way, obstructing justice. This woman needs to be arrested for obstruction of justice.
You're hurting her. Would you stop this? Listen, would you stop it? Listen. Back away from the car.
If you're not understanding what's happening right now, they're not grabbing her up just for the sake of grabbing her up, and you can see that this idiot is holding her infant in hand. They're leaning on top of the vehicle so that the vehicle can't leave. You see, like that's what's happening right now. Like, are you kidding me? Like, that's what you're doing with your infant child right now? You're gonna sit there and lie on top of a vehicle with your child in hand in an attempt to block the vehicle. That's what everybody's doing that you see that's standing around and chanting as well. They're blocking the vehicle. If you notice, and I rewind it back just a little bit, you see it, the vehicle's trying to reverse a little bit, trying to figure out its way out. If I'm not mistaken, it just reversed slightly. Look at this. This is all so ridiculous. Like I said, that dumb city councilwoman needs to be charged and arrested, and there needs to be family separation that occurs with this mother that put her infant in danger.
Let her go. She's my constituent.
The people who are under arrest are under arrest.
She's not. She hasn't done anything.
She's under arrest.
She's not under arrest. She hasn't done anything. Sean, she hasn't done anything, Sean.
Stop.
She hasn't done anything. Let her go. Please let her go. Let her go. She hasn't done anything. She's traumatized. She's traumatized. Why are you holding her?
I can't stand Democrat politicians.
Right.
She's traumatized. Why are you holding? You create a traumatic situation that could have led to a lot of people getting hurt. And that this person should be held accountable.
Let her go.
She's gonna back up, man. She's gonna back up. You can't be up on her. Please, back up.
She's my constituent. She's my constituent.
Okay, well, you can go to the station when she gets her bail, okay?
She has done nothing. What are you doing? Why are you arresting her? Why are you arresting her?
Counsel, you cannot. There's back up. You have to back away. Back away. You gotta back away. Back away. Get your hands off of us.
She didn't deserve that many warnings. They're only giving her that many warnings because she's an idiot city council member.
Right.
And they know who she is, or at least they've been made aware of who she is. She didn't deserve that many warnings. She should have been arrested too.
Absolutely not. Let her go. She hasn't done anything. She hasn't done anything.
Jesus, bro.
So I want to get into another one as well. This is from a different angle. Let me pull this video up for you next.
All right. All right, listen. You're hurting her. City council. City council. You're the baby. Stop. Give me my fucking glasses.
This is irritating me so much, all this theater. So once again, that's the woman that's being arrested, and she drops to her knees and she's screaming like a crazy person. She's screaming like a crazy person. There's so much more that I want to say, but I'm trying to keep it as professional as possible. She's screaming like a crazy person. Let's just carry on with the video.
You're hurting her. Would you stop this? Listen, would you stop it? Listen.
Stop. Take her.
Sit down. You're hurting her. Yes.
Innocent woman. You do not show any warrants. Get out of our neighborhood. Get out of our neighborhood. Oh yeah, right here, guys. Right here.
Stop right there. Stop. They'll explain. Stop.
You stop.
You're supporting them. I'm not supporting anybody. I'm not supporting. They have the. Guys, you gotta step back.
So now essentially we're right back where we started, where the initial video that I played started out. Is it just me? Maybe it's just me, but do you guys get very annoyed and upset watching this too? Like, doesn't it just like irritate you? Like, just rock bottom everybody there. Hit them all with the rock bottom, okay, and slap cuffs on them and call it a day. Like that's just really what needs to happen, you know. We're talking about winning, playing stupid games and winning stupid prizes. A lot of stupid prizes deserved to be handed out that day. A lot of stupid prizes deserve to be handed out alongside with handcuffs and charges. That's what should have happened in that moment. Like I said, this bozo city councilwoman got way too many chances. And ultimately, at the end of the day, man, let me pull this up for you guys before we head out of here, because this is ultimately what it's all about. Look at this right here. Rochester councilor deposits large donation haul after confronting police at ICE raid. Oh, the donations started coming in immediately. That's what all this is really about, man. When you see this city councilwoman acting belligerent, assaulting officers, obstructing justice, just committing crime after crime after crime after crime, putting her own well-being in jeopardy to protect violent illegal immigrant criminals, it's about the money, man. It's about putting on the facade that I'm going to work hard for you, and I'm even going to risk my life and freedom for you. So make sure that you vote for me and give me donations as well. Because she got a whole lot of donations not too long, really about 3 days, as we're going to read, after this situation occurred that she incited. Let's get into this as we head out of here and bring this video to a close. Check this out here. 3 days after she confronted immigration and customs enforcement agents arresting a Brazilian mother of 3 on Eureka Street, District 5 Councilor Etel Haxhiaj recorded some of her best fundraising numbers for her re-election campaign. That's what it's all about, ladies and gentlemen. A deposit report recorded May 11th posted on the Office of Campaign and Political Finance of Massachusetts website finds that Haxhiaj's campaign deposited $3,691 in total donations, about 3 times what she had brought in the entire previous month. Donations ranged as low as $5 to as high as $250, reports read. The nearly $4,000 in donations comes 3 days after she and other members of her district confronted ICE for their arrest of Roseanne Ferreira de Oliveira, as well as local Rochester police at the scene. These people are so unbelievably crooked and despicable.
Yeah.
Because that's what this is all about. It's all about getting those donations and being able to hold on to your seat of power. That's all. That's what this is about. And if only they fought for American citizens as much as we see them fight for illegal immigrants, right? If only. but you'll never see that. You'll never see that from them. And with all that being said, that does it for today's news. The only thing that we can ask for and hope for is that this woman be charged and arrested. Even the police union in Massachusetts, the Massachusetts Police Union, if I remember correctly, they themselves are calling for an investigation. They want this woman held accountable because she put everyone at risk. Everyone. She put the protesters at risk. She put the people being arrested and the family members of the illegal immigrant being arrested at risk. She put the officers' lives at risk. You put everybody at risk because you're an ignorant POS. And with that, we'll just end the video because I'm getting a little bit too upset. So that does it for today's news. Please hit the like button on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you're new to the channel. Share this video on your social media platforms. And also, man, don't forget to follow.
Do the same for Front Line Blacc.
Welcome back. The Bronx and Queens.
All right. Could cover this real quick, but yeah. These damn DNC lunatics, this shit's crazy. That bro was down to get arrested for illegal immigrant. You see that shit, and then you see all the dramatics, all the theater, all the drama that came with that. That was ridiculous. Just to get a money grab, she got what, $4,000 in donations as a result of that ridiculous shit. And then our mayor, Johnston, talking about he down to get arrested for the illegals. Well, I'm waiting for him to put the damn cuffs on him next. But let's head to the West Coast, to the sanctuary state of California. Give you an update on what's happening out there. It's happening. Sanctuary city or sanctuary state, California crumbles under ICE deportation pressure.
Total and complete disaster. I've been fighting in every way I can, using every tool we have here in the House to end Newsom's disastrous policy of free Medicaid for all illegal immigrants. And yesterday, he finally admitted defeat in absolute humiliation. He announced he's going to sunset the program, no further adult enrollments starting next year. So he's admitting the program has been a failure, that it is unsustainable. But it is correct to note that by the time that supposed sunset goes into effect, California will have spent $23 billion that could have gone to our own legal residents that has instead been used as an incentive for illegal immigration. And by the way, beyond that, California is now risking losing a lot of federal money as well because of this policy. I think what's quite likely to happen is you're going to see the legislature will rescind the policy in its entirety. And this sort of half measure that Newsom put forward was a way to try to save face in the process. And that's the really perverse thing, is that for legal California residents, if you're on Medicaid right now, you have a heck of a time getting a doctor's appointment because the reimbursement rates are so low for doctors, among other problems. So rather than shoring up the program to better serve legal California residents so they can actually get the care they need, the governor has privileged giving free coverage for illegal immigrants. Because number one, he's spending mostly state money on this, so he's spending way more on illegal immigrants than he's spending our own residents. Also, because of the rates at which you negotiate prescription drugs, he's spending a lot more on illegal immigrants than our own legal residents because you don't have the federal bulk discounts. And then finally, as I mentioned before, under changes that are occurring in federal law, California stands to lose billions upon billions of dollars in federal Medicaid funding if it maintains this policy of providing coverage to illegal immigrants. And so there has probably never been any policy in the history of our state or country that has more clearly privileged those who have broken the law and are here illegally over our own residents.
What's going on, everybody? Thank you all for joining me today. If you haven't already, please make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new to the channel, and most importantly, please make sure that you are following me on Telegram at TD Media Group to help circumvent social media censorship and shadow banning. With the introduction out of the way, let's get into today's news. And today, I have good news to report to you because as it pertains to the Biden administration's, or I should say not the Biden administration's, Lord have mercy, the Trump administration's mass deportation effort, right? It looks like we're getting that much closer to being able to crack down on these sanctuary cities and states and forcing them to comply by law.
as it pertains to handing over criminal illegal aliens, right? Now, we all know one of the biggest frustrations concerning sanctuary cities and sanctuary states is that something as common sense as issuing a detainer for an illegal immigrant who committed a crime that is currently within the local precinct or in the local jail or prison. You issue a detainer and you say, hey, ICE, we're coming to pick this guy up. Hold on to him for us. And what do? In these sanctuary cities, they deny and ignore the detainer, and they will either release the illegal immigrant who had just committed a crime if he's just being held in a precinct and being booked, or if he is in jail already and he's already had his due process and is now serving his time, they'll say, no, you can't come get him. We're not going to give him up to you. Well, now that has changed. Thankfully, that has changed in the face of going up against these DNC lunatics. Before I get into the specifics of how it changed, you have to realize and understand what we're up against as it pertains to these lunatics. Many of you remember this. I covered this back in February when the news first broke. I just want to rehash it very quickly, though, because look at how hard these lunatics are fighting tooth and nail to maintain and keep illegal immigrant criminals, those who are committing crimes, have multiple felonies already, fighting hard to keep them in your states and in your cities. California approves $50 million to protect immigrants, illegal immigrants, and defend states against Trump administration. Let's get into this article very quickly, and then we're going to get into the actual very clever way that they're getting around the sanctuary city nonsense, right? But this article reads as such. California Governor Gavin Newsom signed laws Friday setting aside $50 million to help the state protect its policies from challenges by the Trump administration and defend illegal immigrants amid the president's mass deportation plans. One of the laws allocates $25 million for the State Department of Justice to fight legal battles against the federal government, and another sets aside $25 million in part for legal groups to defend immigrants, illegal immigrants, facing possible deportation. And I quote, Californians are being threatened by an out-of-control administration that doesn't care about the Constitution and thinks there are no limits to its power, said Democratic Assembly Speaker Robert Rivas in a statement earlier this week. That is why we are delivering legislation that will allocate resources to defend Californians from this urgent threat. As a Californian who resides here in Los Angeles, I can tell you that I face no threat. There are no threats to me. There are no threats to citizens here. The threat, if there is a threat, which it isn't one, is only to criminal, illegal alien, so-called migrants, right? It's not a threat. It's justice. It's justice we're talking about here. But these DNC lunatics like to frame it as if I'm the one who has something to worry about, as if there's some sort of threat to me. No, I'm good. Everything's fine here with this Californian, right? But if you are committing crime here and you're here illegally, justice is on its way. And that's what's happening right now as the Trump administration has found its way around the sanctuary city law foolishness in which local PD is able to deny ICE detainers. Not so much so anymore because of this right here. Let me get into this Fox News video, or I should say Fox 11, because it's local LA news here next. Let's jump into this video now.
Tonight, a bold statement from newly sworn-in U.S. Attorney Bill Etel. He says California and the city of Los Angeles no longer sanctuaries for the undocumented.
It's a story that Fox 11 has been following all week. Tonight, Matthew Seedorf live outside the federal courthouse in downtown LA with more exclusive details on what's called Operation Guardian Angel.
That's right. Yeah, this essentially forces local police to work with the feds. It's something we could see at other sanctuary cities across the country.
Level 1 to your arrest.
The exclusive Fox images from an LA jail highlighting a major shakeup to well-known sanctuary immigration policies across California and LA. Is this a sanctuary city still?
No, it is not a sanctuary.
Newly sworn in Southern California U.S. Attorney Bill Etel drew up Operation Guardian Angel.
We have agents working around the clock As soon as someone is booked in the county jail, we're able to access their fingerprints.
13 eyes. Late last year, the city of LA voted to officially become a sanctuary city.
This law is about making Los Angeles, through law, a sanctuary city.
Preventing city resources from being used to help enforce federal immigration laws.
We're forcing their hand. They can't ignore federal arrest warrants.
This week, Fox, the only media there as an LA jail, transferred an undocumented immigrant over to ICE.
Have the domestic violence.
Using the illegal reentry law, Etel now has federal authorities in Southern California jails to arrest inmates in the country illegally who were previously deported.
First, they're going to come to court and they're going to be charged and tried on that felony, and they may actually end up doing many years in federal prison before they're deported. That is what the California politicians are doing these immigrants. They are subjecting them to more prison time by doing the sanctuary state policy.
A spokesperson from California Governor Gavin Newsom's office pushing back, telling Fox 11 the governor has rejected multiple bills that would have weakened law enforcement's ability to coordinate with ICE, adding state law has explicitly permitted cooperation in these circumstances for many years.
So this isn't just some power struggle between the feds and the state. We're actually trying to keep people safe.
And that's something that the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, and the mayor of Los Angeles, Karen Bass, is not trying to do. And understand this, they're doing all of this with the laws that are on the books. These laws have always been on the books to get these folks out of here. But for years and years, if not decades, at this point, for whatever the reason being, reasons that we can speculate and go over all day long, and we have done on this channel, they're not followed. But as you can clearly see here, once you've re-entered the country a second time after being deported the first time, that is now a federal felony to which a criminal warrant will be placed for your arrest. And now these sanctuary cities have to comply. They cannot deny and ignore a federal warrant to grab a criminal that is in their jails or in their precincts. They cannot deny that at all whatsoever. That's beyond a detainer. And like they stated here, or they might not have said it here just yet, because I cut this video off a little bit early, maybe 20 seconds early, but they're looking at close to, on average, removing up to about 50 illegal immigrants from these prisons and precincts a week, right? And this is where they're starting out. They're starting out here in Los Angeles. Obviously, that's going to spread throughout the state of California. And this is just kind of the test run. But as it shows that it's successful, which clearly it is, this then is going to expand across the country, right? So you take that 50 and multiply it by whatever you want. You're talking about a lot of criminal, illegal immigrants that are going to get removed from this country very quickly. And there is nothing Karen Bass and Gavin Newsom here in Los Angeles, California can do about it. There's nothing that the douchebags of Chicago, Illinois, Brandon Johnson and Governor J.B. Pritzker can do about it when they come that way as well. And this is a beautiful thing. This is exactly what we voted for. And why you have DNC lunatics like the people I just named who want to keep these people on the streets, why they want to do that, it's beyond me. It's beyond me. But the only thing that's happening here is that, simply put, the law is now being enforced. That's all. The law is now being enforced. And it's being enforced in numerous different ways. Check this out. I found this very humorous. Now, if you're on the opposite end of, the law being the law and no one being above the law, it's not going to be humorous to you. But what I'm getting ready to read to you guys right now is definitely very humorous to me. Look at this article right here. Let me pull this up for you now. Do you see this article here? Look at the title. 4,500 illegal immigrants told to pay fines up to $1.8 million. Oh, that's steep. That's steep. Let's get into it and see what they're talking about here. Hitting your pockets hard. Wendy Ortiz was surprised to find out she was being fined by U.S. immigration authorities for being in the country illegally, but it was the amount that truly shocked her. $1.8 million. Oh, man. Ortiz, 32, who earns $13 an hour in her job at a meat packing plant in Pennsylvania, has lived in the United States for a decade after fleeing El Salvador to escape a violent ex-partner and gang threats that no longer exist in El Salvador, because El Salvador is literally quite possibly the safest country in the Western Hemisphere at this point. Tourism is booming in El Salvador. It's just one of the safest places to live. So, I mean, I don't know, not a bad place to live as far as I'm concerned, right? But I digress. She said in an interview and in immigration paperwork concerning the threats, air quotes, to her life, right, that don't exist anymore, her salary barely covers rent and expenses for her autistic 6-year-old U.S. citizen son. I love how they throw that. You got to remember, this is NBC that wrote this article, or you got to remember because you don't know because I didn't show, but it's NBC that wrote this article here. So they have to ham it up. She has a 6-year-old autistic son and he's a citizen. I mean, that's fine. So you were able to have a child with a man that was an American citizen. You're still illegal. So no one's above the law, as Big Tush would say. Pay your fines and either self-deport or Tom Holman's going to come catch you. In the last few weeks, U.S. President Donald Trump has started to operationalize a plan to fine illegal immigrants who failed to leave the U.S. after a final deportation order, issuing notices to 4,500 illegal immigrants with penalties totaling more than $500 million, a senior Trump official said, requesting anonymity to share internal figures. Let's stop right there for a moment. And let's go back to this woman here, who we're supposed to be crying tears for, right? Wendy Ortiz, who has this $1.8 million fine and was allegedly fleeing violence from her ex-partner and gang threats, once again, which no longer exist in El Salvador anymore. All gangs in El Salvador has been neutralized. The reason that she was hit with that fine is because she was hit with a final deportation order, meaning her asylum claim was denied. It was rejected. You had your due process, and the court said, no, your asylum isn't valid. Or you had an assigned court date and you chose to skip it, which is another way that you'll get a final deportation order. Either way, the law is the law. And as the great Big Tush would say, no one is above the law. You skipped out on court, that's on you. You went to court and had your due process and they said you got to leave and you chose not to leave, that's on you. Nobody told you to start popping out kids. Nobody told you to stay here for years on end to the point to where now you have a $1.8 million fine on your head because we're actually enforcing the law. Understand, this fine and penalty that she's been hit with, this isn't something that's new. This isn't something that Trump did by way of an executive order. These laws are already on the books. They were just never being enforced until now. Reuters spoke with 8 immigration lawyers around the country who said their clients has been fined from several $1,000s to just over $1.8 million. The Trump administration plan, details of which were first reported by Reuters in April, include levying fines of $998 per day for illegal immigrants who failed to leave the U.S. after a deportation order. Once again, you're not following the laws. And the law states that if you've been served a deportation order, right, and you're not self-deporting after we told you that you have to get out of here, $998 a day is the fine. Laws that were already on the books. Trump didn't do that. We already had him here. The administration planned to issue fines retroactively for up to 5 years, Reuters reported. Under that framework, the maximum would be a $1.8 million fine. The government would then consider seizing the property of illegal immigrants who could not pay. It remains look at this foolishness right here. Once again, this is MSM, this is NBC. But look at this foolishness right here. It remains unclear exactly how the Trump administration would collect the fines and seize property. What do you mean it remains unclear how they would collect fines and seize property? They would collect fines and seize property the same way that they would do to an illegal, the same way that they would do to a U.S. citizen. Stuff like that makes me so irritated. How are they going to seize the property and take the fines from these legal immigrants? We don't understand how this is going to work. What do you mean you don't understand how it's going to work? It would work the same way it would work for you, who's a U.S. citizen. We're going to garnish your wages. We're going to take the money directly out of your bank account, and we're just going to seize your property. Okay? It works the same way, the same exact way, right? Unless you're admitting that because you're illegal, technically nothing's under your name, you don't have a bank account, you're not given a paycheck, so there's no wages to garnish, there's no bank account to seize money from, and you don't have any property in your name. So you're just living all the way around completely illegal under the radar, which undermines U.S. citizens by way of undercutting wages. Your presence and you operating under the radar like this is hurting U.S. citizens. But you don't care about that. And neither does NBC that's reporting on this. But luckily, we finally have a president that does. And we finally have a president who's actually enforcing the law. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is what I voted for and what I'm sure you all voted for as well. And with all that being said, that does it for today's news. So please hit the like button on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you're new to the channel. Share this video on your social media platforms. And please do not forget to follow me on.
Don't forget to do the same for Front.
Welcome back. The Bronx and Queens.
All right. So switching.
This policy has
Coming
been
to Denver. This is one of them so-called sanctuary cities, thanks to the former mayor Hancock. I call him Hancock. The current mayor Johnston has spent over $200 million to house, clothe, and feed these illegal immigrants here in Denver. And now the city has to make all these cuts. So budget season's coming up. Budget hearings are coming up. And now the mayor has to make an announcement that he has to do all these furloughs. And he has to do all these budget cuts. And a hiring freeze, budget deficit. So next year, Denver's going to be $200 million in the hole as a result of Denver taking on over 50,000 illegal immigrants in a 2-year span. So he did a news conference, and play that, and then he did an interview with one of the dudes from 9 News about this. So first I'm going to play the press conference that he did earlier. I want to say last week. Yeah, last week.
Providing the core services I have. An update on some of the financial dynamics that the city is facing, a little bit about how we got here and where we will go. I want to say as an opener, I know that this city has faced difficult challenges before. And in each one of those moments, we've come through those challenges stronger. And what we can see right now is we are very proud of the ways in which the city is making incredibly important progress. If you look at everything from our work on public safety, where we recently announced a historic 58% drop in the homicide rate year over year. If you look at our continued progress on homelessness, we're now 83% reductions in family homelessness, the largest American city to end the cycle of street homelessness for veterans. If you look at the planned reopening of downtown next week, where 16th Street will be open and alive, we see businesses returning, residents returning, sales tax returning. There are great reasons for optimism. And there are great reasons to believe that when this city faces hard challenges head on, we come out the other side better. So with that context, let me share with you a little about where the city is right now in terms of the financial outlook for the road ahead. I will lead with the important points to start on. What we know right now is we are seeing structural financial challenges in the city that are true around the state and around the country. That looks like both economic downturn and flattening revenue. And in addition to that, we also see steady and unsustainable growth in government costs. And I want to talk about both of these dynamics at the same time. The result of that, as I'll walk you through, is that means we have in 2025 about a $50 million revenue gap, and heading into 2026 about a $200 million projected deficit to manage. This is going to require structural change. I want to talk to you about that, but let me first tell you how we got here. Go to the next slide. When you look first at the challenges around economic downturn, and these are items that are not news to you because you write them every day, but I think they're very important for residents to see. This right here is the Consumer Sentiment Index. This is how confident do regular folks feel about spending money. Are you going to buy a new refrigerator right now? Are you going to take your family on summer vacation? Are you going to go out to dinner tomorrow night with your kids and your cousins who are in town? What you see here is that the consumer sentiment right now is twice as low as it was the day that the world closed and the COVID pandemic began in March of 2020. What you will notice is this is right now the third lowest that this rate has ever been in the last 75 years of American life. You have to go back to the 2008 recession. You have to go back to Black Monday in 1980s to be able to see this level of dropped consumer confidence. And what you see is not just that it's dropping, but it's dropping precipitously. If you look at the slope of this line from Jan 25 to April of 25, it is as steep as the night you were watching the Nuggets game in March of 2020 and Rudy Gobert came out and the next day everything shut down and you could no longer send your kids to school or even press unleaded or leaded at the gas station pump because you were worried about contamination. That is the scale of the drop. That is the depth of the concern from consumers. And what we see is that changing dramatically since January of this year. Next slide. The same is true on our business confidence right here in Colorado. If you run a restaurant or you run a retail store or you run a construction company, how confident are you to hire new people, to invest in new programs? And what you'll see here also, this is at its lowest rate in the last 15 years along with COVID. This and COVID were the two moments where you found businesses that saying, just not sure I feel confident enough that I'll have a steady income going forward. I talked to a restaurant owner this week who said the same thing, beloved restaurant, who said, I am just not sure I'll be able to keep my doors open. I said, why is that? She said, well, just this week I got a 15% increase in just my alcohol bill from my alcohol supplier. I said, even if that's domestic alcohol, she said, it doesn't matter. If the glass and steel that makes the container that alcohol comes in is still subject to increased costs, that's going to drive up my bottom line. So we know this is a profound challenge. Next slide. We also know this is what we see in cities and states around the country right now. Obviously, the state of Colorado just got through managing $1 billion budget gap. We see cities around the country with $1, $2, $3 billion budget deficits. You see those in red cities and blue cities, in red states and blue states. This is the fundamental dynamics of a country that is worried about the economic forecast and is stopping spending as a result. We saw that beginning in the second half of 2024. As many Americans were watching an uncertain presidential election, that spending began to slow. And then when it hit 2025, you saw that spending collapse in the graph that you just saw. Next slide. And I'm just going to name, by the way, that this is probably an unusual press conference that I'm going into full teacher mode here, because I think the facts of these details matter tremendously in terms of where the city is and how we got here. And so I appreciate your patience in sticking through it because the details are very important. Combined with that economic downturn, you have real challenges around flattening revenues. Next slide. So this is what the city's revenue growth looks like over the last 15 years. What you can see is over the last roughly 15 years, revenue has grown about 75%. That means it's grown steadily at about 5% average revenue growth every single year. And that works because when your revenues go up about 5% a year, generally your costs do too. You have increased costs of contracts, you have increased costs of healthcare, you have pay increases for employees. All of those things generally drive up the cost of any organization. So when your revenues go up at that rate, you keep pace. What you'll see in the last 2 years is going from that 5% average revenue growth, we saw already in 2024 concerns about that slowing, because in the second half of the year, we saw significant drops as uncertainty emerged about the presidential election. And so what was a 5% average growth dropped to 2% in 2024. We predicted conservatively we'd be about 3% revenue growth going into 2025, assuming it wouldn't be nearly as good as the average 5% years, but would be a steady recovery. Instead of a 3% revenue growth in 25, what we are seeing is a near zero revenue percent growth. It's 0.3% revenue growth on the year. That means you've gone from 5% revenue growth year over year to near zero. That flattening is what accounted for $50 million of gap this year. The only reason that number is not $100 million of gap this year is because our team already foresaw this and decided to already cautiously cut revenue projections. We did not imagine you would see the worst economic collapse in the last 20 years other than COVID in the first 4 months of this year, but that is what has turned out to be the case. So that is the revenue through 2025. Next slide. Now let's talk about an additional challenge here is the structural growth of government over the same period of time. Next slide. You'll see right here, these are where our dollars go in the city. About 70% of our total expenditures are people. About 25% are contracts and services and some other internal services as a general part of the pie. Important to know this going forward. If you look at the growth of government over the last 14 years in the city, we have increased our total employee count by about 40%. We went from 10,000 employees to now 15,000 employees over the last 12 years. Next slide. In addition, we saw almost 70% growth in contracts and services over that same period of time. And next slide. That has resulted in total increase in expenditures of 83%. We have nearly doubled the size of the government over the last 12 years. But the challenge, if you remember both slides, is our costs have grown by 83% over the last 12 years. Our revenues have only grown by 75%. That means structurally over the last 12 years, we have grown the costs of government 8% more than we've grown the revenues. That is unsustainable growth of government. It is not possible to support that level of growth and the quality of services required at this pace. You'll see if you look at these last two slides, we were worried about this when we arrived. So instead of the 83% increases, we first started by slowing that growth to 4.5% in our first budget. And then last year, for the first time in more than 15 years, we actually cut government. We actually reduced the number of employees citywide, and we reduced our spending path aggressively so that we're actually negative growth for the first time. Even with that projection of negative growth this year, when you see the collapse of sales tax revenue that we've seen, that means this structural gap continues to grow. That's why if you go to the next slide, what the gap is in 2026 is now that $200 million number, which is a combination of that ongoing growth and then the flattening revenues hitting at the same time. That's a bit about how we got here. Happy to take questions on that at the end. Let's talk about how we get out of here. And so what are the changes we need to make? What are the directions we have to adjust to be able to meet this moment? We have to do two things. As I said, you have flattening revenue, you have increasing costs. You have to do two things. You have to both drive increases in your revenue to recover, and you have to drive reductions in your costs to make those two lines meet. So we will do both of those things. An explicit part of the strategy to solve this crisis is to invest in catalytic projects that increase revenue for the city. Talk about that in a minute. The second is we do have to fundamentally restructure city government to live within its means. That means we'll have some immediate steps for 2025, and we'll have some deeper structural changes for 2026. Here's what this looks like. So for 2025, we are going to invest in the things that increase revenue. That means, yes, we are going to make catalytic investments that will drive increases in revenue that do not rely on general fund dollars. That means when we talk about downtown reinvestment, National Western Center, Women's Soccer League, Vibrant Denver, not a single dollar that comes from the general fund. It does not displace an employee. It does not cut a program. Those are capital dollars for capital investments, and they drive long-term revenue that do come to the general fund. And so what you'll see here in this investment is that importantly, right, if you look at National Women's Soccer League, that's a $2.2 billion investment. That's 1,100 jobs. It's $500 million of sales tax revenue. That's critically important. If you look at National Western Center, right, this is one that is now at this point more than $3 billion of GDP. driven by that. If you look at downtown Denver, a third of our jobs, almost 15% of our sales tax base is in downtown. These are critical investments you need to be able to grow. Here's the example I would give you. 1987, right after Black Monday, probably seemed like a terrible time to drive a significant investment in the city. Fortunately, Federico Pena went forward with building the convention center anyways. Turned out to be a massive driver for the city. 1991, coming out of an early recession that sunk the presidency of George Bush, maybe not a great time for a big investment. Turned out to be the exact right time to invest in Coors Field, which is a massive driver of revenue long term. Maybe our most catalytic investment in the last 15 years, 2008, in the heart of the Great Recession, was the launch of Union Station redevelopment. Seems like a terrible time to make a key investment in downtown. Those are three of our biggest revenue drivers in the city because we had the wisdom to invest in times when you have economic challenge. So we will keep doing that. That is the only way you grow out of the place that we are right now. Next slide. We also have to focus on how we manage costs. So let me tell you about what that looks like immediately for 2025. And these are all hard decisions. They're decisions you never want to have to make, and they're decisions you avoid whenever you can. We just met with all of our city employees to talk through this package before we did this conference. The first step is we will start a tiered furlough system for city employees for 2025. These are one-time savings that help us balance this 2025 hole. In 2020, during the pandemic, the city took 8 furlough days. Those are what we call flat furlough days, which means every single city employee from the lowest paid to the highest paid all took 8 days off. We're doing this differently because we think equity is really important. I want to thank Ben Sanders and our team for helping us think through this decision. What this will mean is instead, all city employees will take 2 days. We'll have 2 days where the city closes like a typical furlough, Friday before Labor Day, Friday after Thanksgiving. The other 3 to 7 days will go up by the level of income of each city employee. So our lowest paid employees will take 2. All of our mayoral appointees, all of our senior cabinet members, and I will all take 7, which will be the largest number of furlough days for all city employees. That tiered balance both helps us save $10 million and helps us protect those city employees that are struggling the most to pay their rent. We will also start a hiring freeze effective today that will run through the completion of the 2026 budget, which will be in September 15, at which point we'll evaluate what other decisions have to be made going forward. We'll limit discretionary spending. We'll reduce and restructure contracts. Next slide. But let's talk about how we actually fundamentally solve the structural challenge I walked you through earlier, which is expenses growing faster than revenues and revenues flattening faster and faster. Next slide. For us, this means actually building a government that is smaller, that's faster, and that's easier. And for us, that means we got to make it smaller by right-sizing our budget to focus on citywide goals, focus on core services, and focus on living within our means. It means we want to make government faster also by moving more and more government services online so they're easier for people to access, and they're often easier for us to provide. That both provides better service and also provides lower cost. We also know when I talk to city employees all the time, one of the things that makes government expensive is that it can be slow and it can be hard to navigate. So we think by making government easier, by both cutting red tape to make systems move faster, it makes the workload of city employees lighter, and it makes the results for city residents faster and easier. So I'll talk about each of these. Let me start with the hardest one of all. We have to start with the most difficult challenges is how do we actually right-size the budget to restructure to meet this $200 million need. And we will do that by focusing on still not abandoning or walking away from the citywide goals we've undertaken. As I mentioned, we're making dramatic progress on the areas where we're focused. We are not going to stop that focus. We're not going to walk away from public safety commitments. We're not going to away from commitments on housing or homelessness or climate or child friendly. Those are all will continue to be key priorities. We're also not going to back away from core services. We're not going to stop picking up people's trash or providing the services they deserve. But to do that, we will have to put all solutions on the table. That means we'll have to look at reduction or elimination of programs. We'll have to look at consolidation of departments. And yes, we will have to look at layoffs. We do not envision a scenario where it's possible to right-size this budget without that impact on personnel. I shared that with our employees this morning. And we will work hard with our cabinet leaders over the next 4 months to build a budget that is smaller, faster, and easier, that protects our goals and our city services in a way that allows us to live within our means. We will also start an effort to get feedback from the public and from our city employees on what we can do to help modernize services. What are the ways we can take slow systems and make them faster? How can we make expensive systems and make them cheaper so that people's services actually get better? And then finally, we'll focus on how we reduce the burdens of regulation by cutting red tape and taking out some of those rules that make it harder for employees and slower for residents. We will have, you can go to the next slide. We want people to be involved in this process because the users of our city should tell us what's most important to them, and the workers in our city should tell us what's most important to them. And so on this QR code, which we'll send out everywhere today, we'll ask for feedback on 3 things. What are the ways you think we should right-size the budget? What are the services that are most core to you? What are the things that you find to be not most core services to you? Importantly, what are the ways you'd like to see city services be faster or easier to navigate? We know people may have pet peeves about what they find to be cumbersome processes right now. How can we take this opportunity to eliminate or reduce those? And finally, where are the places that we can cut and eliminate regulations that would make services go faster, which makes them cheaper? That'll be a big part of our goal. And so that is the way we think we get to a sustainable government. So looking ahead, hiring freezes will start today. We'll begin the furlough process June 1. We'll spend the next 4 months working on crafting the 26 budget, and we will provide to you all regular updates on this. This will be a collaborative process by which we do this together. So I think the key is we want to people that were listening, and we want your ideas. So you can go to the next slide and let me close with this, and then I'll take questions. I had a teacher who was a mentor of mine when I first became a school principal, and she used to say to me, Mike, there are only 2 things you can offer to children: truth and hope. She said, if you don't tell them the truth, they go out every day and search for a world that doesn't exist. But if you don't give them some sense of hope, they don't have any reason to get out of bed and go looking for any world at all. I think the same is the true for our city. So let me tell you what the truth is and what the hope is. The truth is this is hard, and this is going to be hard. And the truth is it's also hard in this city to raise 2 kids and not be able to pay your rent every month. It's hard to watch your retirement that you worked 40 years to build to evaporate by 20 or 30% when the stock market collapses. The truth is it's hard when it costs $100 to take your family to the movies. That is true. And Denverites who face those hard moments every day have to find a way to live within their means, and they deserve a government that does the same. And so we will take on that hard truth. The other truth is this is what responsible public leadership looks like, is that when you have these hard problems, you face them and you face them directly. And you believe that these problems are things we can solve if we go at solving them together. And when you see that you have less money, you have to balance the budget to make it work. That's what every business in this city does. It's what every family in this city does. It's what this government should do. But there's also hope in this story, which is when you look at what we do in hard times in this city, we get through them together. We have faced hard ones before and we have made it, whether that was COVID, whether that was a migrant crisis, whether that was challenges around public safety or anything else. We have faced each one of those and we have come out on the other side stronger. Our city will do that. And I don't mean just me. I don't just mean the executive directors in this room. I mean, when you go to your rec center tomorrow, the woman who greets you at the door will be taking a pay cut to do that job. The guy that picks up your trash next week will be taking a pay cut to do that job. The person that gets you a license at the DMV will take a pay cut to do that job. And they will do it with a smile, and they will do it with a quality and a commitment and a pride that will not change. I often say that crisis doesn't build character, it reveals character. So the hope is watch the character of this city to see how we respond in this moment. Which is, I think what you'll see is that we stand up in a way that says you have a choice in moments of crisis. You can either turn on each other or you can turn to each other. This is a city that in every moment turns to each other, and this one will be no different. And so I say if you're looking for hope, at the end of this process, if we have built a sustainable government that can meet ambitious goals, that can deliver core services, that can live within our means, that can build a government that is smaller and faster and easier to navigate, then we will once again show that Denver is the place where we believe that all our problems are solvable and that we're the ones to solve. The city can do that, and I believe we will. With that, I'll take questions.
Mayor, this is part of the problem that your administration involved in Mile High initiative where there was a proposal to give raises to the department heads because people are already making six-figure salaries, much more than the rest of you. So don't you have this review problem?
So we are absolutely going to reduce spending citywide. That's going to be part of the release. I think what's key to look at is we reduced the size of government last year and shrank it for the first time in 15 years. And that won't be enough in a world where the economic crisis is such that revenues are flat and costs are up. So we do have to adjust that. Let me address the question you're raising about, well, what about spending on homelessness? And maybe going to ask about migrants. So here's the question. The question is, all right, well, what happens to these priorities that have developed in the city? There are two that come up. One is the question, what is spending on migrants? Okay. I'll wait. I'll get the microphone. And then I'll ask the question. So that's if I just talk loudly enough, you pick me up from there, or you were like that. I'm all. All right. I know. You can put them here. Right here, for example. You all figure it out. How's that? Everybody mostly live and that works? Great. Thank you. Okay, so the question is, what about growth and spending in some targeted areas in the city over the last 2 years? How does that balance? So two things we get questions about are, what about spending on migrants? What about spending on homelessness? I'll talk about these two separately, but let me just say in a slide, what you'll see here is the yellow bars at the top are spending on migrants over the last 3 years. The blue bars in the bottom are spending on homelessness over the last 3 years around general fund for homelessness. Migrants is general fund plus a couple other funds because that was an unusual situation. But what you'll notice here is across 3 years, these two expenditures together are up less than $3 million net. So you'll see obviously migrant spending coming down significantly, homelessness spending increasing, but still net, both of them, they're about a $2 million difference. But let me say something else. Homelessness is absolutely an investment in the city's economic growth. So when you think about the investments like Union Station or the investments like 16th Street, what will not work is to get businesses to come back downtown or residents to come back downtown if we were in a spot we were 2 years ago, where you have the U.S. Postal Service about to shut down services in downtown Denver because you had 200 tents that ring all 4 blocks of a federal postal service. And so that investment is already yielding benefits, which is both fewer people are dying on the streets, 5,000 people are moved off the streets into transitional housing, but also we do not have any encampments in our city center. We do not have any large encampments anywhere in the city. If you are running a business in this city or have a home in this city, that is a transformational change that makes you more likely to do business here or live here. And so those are investments we have made. They have paid off. They have worked. We will keep making them. And that will actually be a key driver to economic growth. So the key is actually investing in the things that drive growth. And this is one of them. Next question. Sí.
Muchos miembros de la comunidad hispana dependen de programas públicos para el cuidado de sus familias. ¿Cómo se va a afrontar esa situación si hay recortes? ¿Cómo va a afrontar para ellos para que tengan una mejor calidad de vida en lo que resta del año y en 2026?
¿Por qué tienen miedo de lo que va a pasar del gobierno federal o de la economía?
En la economía.
Okay. Sí sabemos en este momento que mucha gente tiene miedo de lo que está pasando en el país y que sabemos que la economía está en tiempos difíciles y lo que vamos a hacer aquí en Denver es que vamos a seguir invirtiendo en las cosas que pueden traer más negocios aquí a Denver. Entonces vamos a poner dinero en nuestro bond y nuestros proyectos que van a crear trabajos para que gente pueda seguir trabajando y seguir trayendo dinero que ayuda al gobierno y también a la ciudad. Entonces vamos a seguir haciendo eso y también vamos a cortar los precios del gobierno para asegurar que nosotros vivimos en el dinero que tenemos y no podemos gastar más que traemos. Yes.
Mayor, can you just explain why the city can't use the millions of dollars in interest from the previous bonds issued by the city towards the general budget to help offset the potential furloughs and layoffs instead of going towards the stadium project?
A great question. I want to return to this because I mentioned earlier, but I think can't say it enough times. When we look at the investments we're making in things like the stadium or the stock show, those are capital dollars only used for capital expenditures, just to build things. So they cannot, by definition, be used to fund a program or a person in the general fund. And so these gaps that we're describing are just general fund dollars. And so if we take all those projects to zero, that would not change this budget in one way. What it will change is by using those dollars to invest in things that grow revenue, it will return revenue to this general fund. And so it can only be a catalyst to increase revenue. It cannot supplant any revenue. Capital fund goes to building things, general fund goes to paying people and programs.
But there's no way that money can be changed or changed to be directed to the general fund?
No, those are allocated, particularly those bond dollars are allocated bond dollars to be used for public construction projects. That's what they're approved for and designated for. So they can't be changed, they can't be moved. But also I would say in addition, we wouldn't want to do that for the same reasons I described. You want to build Union Station in a recession, you want to build Coors Field, you want to build the convention center. What we need here equally in terms of controlling costs is growing revenue. What you need to do is invest in the places that will drive revenue, and these places will drive revenue. Yeah, Kyle.
Can you speak to, so like all these new capital projects, someone's going to have
we're not sure if
looking at furloughs and layoffs, like once the things are so how are you going to afford make sure that they actually
I think the key is right now the investment on these sides will be capital projects. There will be capital dollars. They have different structures, right? For instance, the stadium was not going to be staffed by Denver City employees. That will be run and managed by an independent organization. So we don't have ongoing maintenance or staffing there. The stock show often is run by the National Western, and there's an independent an independent organization that runs that separately. And so not all of these have ongoing carrying costs for the city, but they do drive revenue for the city. And so same with downtown Denver, the investments in downtown, a lot of those will be in building parks or in converting commercial buildings to residential. So we have more people that are present there. That's more people living, working, buying, spending revenue there. And so these are all drivers of income, even if they're not actual liabilities for the city directly.
thinking about libraries that are in the bottom of parks.
Great question. Thank you. So on the bond can be both. Some of it will be maintenance of existing projects and infrastructure to make sure the city still works, so roads and bridges are still safe. And this is where the risk is. You can't stop doing those forever, right? What we're describing here, I hope I showed, is a structural challenge, which is costs are growing too high and revenues are too low. You can't balance that anymore on a one-time fund. So even the idea of, could we find 10 million to move this year or 20 million to move 1 year? We did that last year, but that doesn't solve long-term structural challenges. And so in the bond, we will look at what are the things that are going to be improvements or maintenance, and what are the things that would require new infrastructure. And when we talk with our team at the library or our team at Parks and Rec, we'll evaluate both of those. What's the short-term construction cost? What's the long-term staffing cost? And I will say that that is also part of growth, as you do prune and plant at the same time. You do want to make sure that you're both scaling back things that are not as crucial as they were 30 years ago, and you're investing in new things that are incredibly important. Yes.
There's so much here, from downsizing local government to furloughs to layoffs. What I want to ask you is, How do you see this affecting citizens of Denver? What are they going to notice? Are they eventually going to find offices closed, services unavailable? What's the impact going to be on people who actually live in Denver?
Great question, Ryan. Our goal is to minimize any impact on public-facing services at every step that we can. And so the challenge that all of our executive directors and I have, and our city employees have over the next 4 months, is to figure out how we can right-size this budget while minimizing any impact on services. We know it's probably impossible to avoid all of them, but our goal is to eliminate or avoid as many of them as possible. And so this really is the starting line for this process, not the finish line. We still have 4 months of a budget to build. I'll be meeting with our executive directors every month. They'll be talking to employees. We'll be gathering feedback. We'll be trying to figure out where are the savings here that least impact public services. Yes.
You mentioned that you tried to scale the budget back for 2025. Knowing what you know now about how that still wasn't quite enough, are you wondering if maybe the city should have even more aggressively scaled back in 2025?
I think if you go back to these slides on the economic downturn, I think this is why it's so helpful, is if you look at where we were, we built this budget in July, August of 24. And let's actually go down to the next one. Actually, no, go back to that one. This one's right. So, we were here, we were building budget. Yeah. There were some vicissitudes, but mostly you were at a steady state. We predicted a drop of this magnitude, which would have been dramatic. We did not predict one of the third worst drops in the last 75 years. I think we did not predict all of the things that happened in the last 4 months: tariff war, global trade crisis, stock market collapses. So that was, I think, why we were conservative. I will tell you, we are going to be incredibly conservative going forward. So if you can go, Megan, to the slide on the 2026 projected budget. What you'll notice here, if you go back one slide, Megan. It's actually okay. Go back to this one. So what you'll notice here is last year we said we're gonna say revenue growth is going to slow. Instead of a normal 5% year, let's call it a 3% year. And we were wrong. It was like a 0.7% year. So what we are planning for here is 0% growth in 2026. So what you'll see is, see this bar? It's flat, flat, flat. As opposed to look at these years of revenue growth. Look at these years of revenue growth. We are preparing now for what would be the worst financial economic situation, which is zero revenue growth. And so the benefit is if we do anything better than that, we'll be in a better situation. I think we can't afford to not be incredibly cautious about taking a zero revenue assumption.
Meg, you talk about
Please.
About how federal action, they're affecting the budget, including the $28 million city strategy back.
Those dollars clearly do affect the budget. We're fighting to get them. For those of you that know, Nina's talking about, this was, when we looked at FEMA grants that we applied for, really the condition of the grant was you must use these dollars to provide services to migrants that have arrived in your city. We then use those dollars to provide those services. Now the new administration is revoking those dollars on the grounds that we use them to provide services to migrants in our city. So we think that's clearly illegal, a violation of Congress's intent and Congress's action. So we'll sue to get those back. That would be wonderful if we could get that back. And to go back to your question, that is still a one-time investment. That would help us solve a little bit of short-term costs in 25. It does not solve the structural gap that we're seeing without doing that. The most profound thing that the federal government is doing that is driving a change for our city is the collapse of consumer confidence, the collapse of business confidence, and the collapse of spending. That is the biggest thing. And so we can't control federal policy. What we can control are the incentives that make it more likely for folks in Denver to be able to spend and invest in ways that will grow the economy.
Mayor, why are you confident that these capital projects will drive growth? I mean, like with the soccer stadium, most economists say that stadiums don't help cities grow economically the way maybe you believe.
Yeah, I'd say those economists should probably be unemployed. I think if you look at, ask any restaurant owner who's in McGregor Square if it makes a difference when there's a home Rockies game or not. Ask Brooklyn's across from Ball Arena if it makes any difference if there's an Avs or a Nuggets game or not. Or ask anyone that offices at Union Station if it matters that there's a fully activated, revived public spaces with restaurants and commercial investment that they come to work in or not. We see some of the dramatically higher rates of occupancy and revenue are disproportionately in lower downtown, not in upper downtown. Why is that? That is singly because of the investment of Union Station and the surrounding areas that have driven that recovery much faster than other parts of the city. So I think it is incredibly clear that these investments drive activation, they drive investment, they drive revenues, and that's the way we grow the city, which is why we're so committed to staying invested in those.
Mayor?
Yes.
Did it take a budget shortfall for you to crystallize that the government should be faster, easier, and smaller? Because the smaller case, some people might be like, well, it might have been a good thing in July 2023 to think small.
Yeah. So I think it's both. As you know, we've been working a lot on faster. When you look at our Denver permitting office, that was an entire investment in the single most problematic place in the city where things were too slow. And we knew it was slowing down business and literally driving up rents for residents because it took too long to build those things. We've been working some, so that was already in place on faster. We've been working some on easier. We had our Den AI Summit, which is a convening that Suma and our team has led to bring technology developers to say, how can we make city services easier to navigate and faster? So we were doing those in pieces already. I think what this catalyzed is to fix any one of these, you have to fix all of them, right? To be able to make government smaller, you're going to have to make it faster. You're going to have to make it a little bit easier to activate. We'll try to do those together. And we know there were good reasons to invest in a lot of the growth we've seen over the last 10 or 12 years. When you have 5, 7, 8% growth every year, it's easy to think that you keep growing. But I think what we found is if you look at a lot of these years, there were 17, 18, 19 already. Those years were running deficits. But the result was you had big fund balances that had built up from the boom years to help you could live out of fund balance. That's not there anymore. And so you have to really tighten the budget to make sure you're just spending what you're bringing in. So I think it has crystallized this for us. And I think that's what all of our executive directors are doing, is looking at how can I really focus on hitting the big goals I have, providing the core services I have, but doing it in a different way than I might have done it before. We think that's what families and businesses do, and we think we can do that too. Yes.
To your point about investment, you have sort of a coincidental silver lining in the street formerly known as the mall opening, right, as this is happening. I'm curious to get a sense, if you were to do no capital improvements, as you say, as you plan to do, would the projected tax revenue from the mall, 16th Street, fill in some of this hole in a way that's significant?
I mean, we're very optimistic about 16th Street and its catalyst to revive investment in downtown. That was a big investment we made, a capital investment of almost $250 million over the last 3 or 4 years. But we know that just opening it is not going to be enough. You do need to be able to have more people downtown, which means some of those vacant commercial buildings we want to turn into residential buildings. That means we do need to attract and keep vendors there who will be able to drive revenue. And we don't want to take any chances. What we can't afford to do is sit back and watch declining revenues continue. So that will be one of our most important catalysts. We're excited that the continuing investments we'll make in downtown will also not be with general fund dollars. They'll be from this Downtown Development Authority. I mean, the best story here, right, is you think about the Union Station story. They started this in the recession, said, we think this might be effective enough to pay back itself in 30 years. It now paid itself back twice as fast. It's done in 15 years, and it's going to leave $500 million for us to invest in the rest of downtown for the next 15 years. That's what we think the investments we're making now will do. Because hopefully 15 years from now, a mayor will be standing here saying, thanks to the revenue coming off of these key investments, we actually are seeing real growth. Yes.
Are you considering asking city employees to increase their pension contributions so that the city contributes less to their pensions?
That's not a solution we've looked at right now. I will say I tried to be clear in this slide, as hard as it is, that all things are on the table. And so that's the thing we'll spend. You might be our first submission of a suggestion, Brian, to the website. But I think that's what we'll spend the next 4 months looking at, is what are all the options? Which options save the most dollars, still deliver great services, and do everything we can to protect city employees. And so we'll look at all those, but that's not one I've looked at yet.
Mayor,
Yes.
Is there a rough estimate of the missing federal dollars that are projected in this outlook? And then also, does the city have any money set aside for any potential litigation, or is that something that the city is kind of relying on the state to do?
So on both questions, the immediate dollars that we're contesting are $24 million of federal grants that we already spent dollars for. We promised to be reimbursed. They have stopped reimbursement. We'll litigate over those. That would just be $24 million one time. So again, that would really just help maybe in the 2025 one-time fund gap, will not help in the ongoing $200 million structural gap. In terms of litigation, we do have dollars that we have prepared to be able to use for cases like this. Often our own city attorneys do cases like this. And oftentimes, like in this suit, we have other cities like Chicago that take lead, and we do not allocate resources to the litigation of them directly. So where we can, we'll partner with other cities in the same position or other states so that we can reduce costs for our own city. Yes.
Mayor, I know the city has a contingency fund and a rainy day fund. How are they being defined?
Well, I'm smiling because I had another 17 slides I wanted to run you through on the fund balance, but my team thought this was maybe 40 slides was enough. I'll just say, as a short summary, fund balance is also a concern for us. So what happened, what you saw is over the last 10 years, when expenditures have been growing faster than revenues, the way the city has managed that is by dipping into fund balance. It's sort of like we all have a checking account and a savings account, and you try not to touch the savings account. We've been living out of the savings account. But when you're seeing that every month you have a structural gap and you got to rely on savings, it just means your earnings don't meet your costs. And so that if you remember last year, that was one of the ways in which we balanced, was to bring some money from fund balance. And that's why for the first time in a long time, we dropped below 15% on our fund balance, which is recommended. If we were to keep dropping fund balance, it would drop below 10%. The city has never in its history dropped below 10% fund balance. We think that would be very risky. And so part of the reason why we have to make these structural fixes is otherwise you're going to just keep dipping into the savings account every year, and that we think that's unsustainable. You mentioned the second one. Thank you for the detailed question. For those of you writing the details, contingency is different. Contingency is every year we keep a contingency for just that 1 year's crisis. That's about $34 million, and we spend it each year, and then it disappears each year. Fund balance is the overall savings account. The other way we're going to try to fill as much of this $50 million hole in 2025 is by protecting that contingency. So that means we're trying to not have departments come in with supplementals or additional costs in 2025. Often there are unforeseen things we use that for. The more of that we can protect, the better chance we get to fill that 50.
We have time for 2 more questions.
Back to the one at Soccer Stadium, I know you outlined dollars and where it's
Yes.
coming from, and you mentioned it as a catalytic investment. There are some people though that may be thinking, and maybe even some council members too, who say, that's great that it's gonna be a catalytic investment, but the stadium may not open until, it's probably won't open until 2028, and you need revenue now. How do you square with revenue now to get to the revenue that you hope to get later?
This is actually the best way to drive revenue now, because that stadium in 4 months, 6 months, when it breaks ground, will drive 1,100 jobs now. So one of the key items is the actual construction and the development of that site is itself a job creator, is itself a revenue creator, is itself a sales tax and an income tax driver. So it's not just a long-term investment, it is very much a short-term investment. Of course, it gets better when it's open, but for each of these, the investments now are important. 16th Street was a big investment while it was under construction in the construction industry. It'll be a big investment in the retail industry now that it's reopened. So both are true, and we want to keep doing both.
Last question?
Yes.
Can we talk a little bit about the airport? So the airport's kind of a unique creature within the city government. Will the hiring freezes and furloughs, will that apply to those employees as well? And how do you see this affecting the airport?
Thank you. I talked with Phil about this. The airport will also take furloughs. All of our staff at the airport will also participate. Every employee is participating, whether you're in a mostly generally funded organization or a special revenue fund, or, as you know, an enterprise. So we are doing that across the board. There are some enterprises that will have different effects on the hiring freeze. I don't know if I mentioned in the hiring freeze. Obviously, hiring freeze will not apply to uniformed officers, will not apply to 911 call takers. There are certain mission critical operations that will not be frozen. And there are certain core frontline public services that if someone quits a month from now, we will have to backfill. If you're a caseworker at social services and you have a caseload of 80 people that rely on you, there are certain of those roles we'll have to backfill. And so there are obviously certain 24-hour-a-day operations at the airport that have to be continued, but they will participate in the furloughs. Yes. Thank you all so much for all of your time, attention, good questions. This will be a challenging stretch for the city, but one in which we are actually quite confident with the leadership of the folks in this room and the equipment of the team in the city. We will come out on the other side stronger with a government that we think is faster and smaller and easier to navigate, but that still meets big goals that delivers core services and that makes the city proud in how we handle the crisis. So thank you all for being here.
Mayor Mike Johnston, thanks for joining me. You just announced what the deficit for the remainder of this year is and for next year, 50 million this year, 200 million for next year.
Yeah.
Do you regret any of the spending on migrant and homelessness, or was that worth it, even though we now are talking furloughs and city services getting cut?
Yeah, I don't regret it. They were worth it, and they are not the thing that is driving the gap in the budget right now. So I mentioned this earlier, but those two expenditures together, homelessness and migrants, when you look at our general fund expenditure, are about $2 million more in 2025 than they were in 2023. So homeless investments are going up, migrants investments are going down, but net they're about a $2-3 million difference. That is not the creation of a $200 million hole. This hole is a function of flattening revenue. Our sales tax returns have gone to 0% growth. That's true in cities and countries around the country. You'll see blue states, red states, blue cities, red cities, many of them billion, $2 billion, $3 billion deficits. So this is the collapse of the economy we've seen in the last 4 months is really what's driving the flattening revenue. And then we do have, over the last 15 years, the government has grown more than revenues have grown, and that's unsustainable. So we do have to right-size government to make sure we spend within our means, and that's what we'll do.
A 2 million change from 23 to 25, but
Yeah.
What's the number? I don't like the change is fine, but how much is spent?
Oh, it's from 73 million in 23 to about 76 million in 25. And there are other fund sources. There are federal funds on this, but that's on just general fund. What we're talking about is solving for the general fund problem right now. But what most important is homelessness is an investment for us. That is a key predecessor to economic recovery in the city. If you run a business in downtown or you want to go to see a movie and you are at the postal office that was about to close because there was 200 tents around it, that is not a viable path to a thriving city. And so we've made dramatic impact on homelessness. We'll keep doing that. That was an investment that's paid off. But the real challenge here is that the government growth is much larger than the revenue growth. We got to right size that like any family does.
All in Mile High, is that number? How much total is All in Mile High?
Well, that's the general fund numbers. That's actually the general fund number on both housing and homelessness together for general fund. It has increased. It's gone up about 30 million over the last 2 years. Migrants has decreased about 30 million over the last 2 years. So we are making more investments, but the key is we're making investments that work. I mean, we have cut family homelessness by 83% in that time frame. We have eliminated veteran homelessness, the largest city in America to eliminate veteran homelessness in their city. Like those are massive wins showing this is working. What we have to do is look at what are all the things we've added as cost to this government over the last 50 years that have to be right-sized, and that's what we'll do.
You were proposing big pay raises for the highest paid employees, the mayoral appointees. At the same time, we're now talking about furloughs for everybody, but including rank and file employees. What does that say about your values and priorities?
Yeah, what it explains is that our values are about fairness. What happens right now is every year, 15,000 city employees get annual increases of their cost of living, of merit. We do an evaluation each year. Are you paid the right amount for your job based on other comparables in the rest of the city? 15,000 employees get that every single year. Because of an old structure in the city charter, only 12 employees never get that. So they don't ever get increases. They don't get adjustments for their market. They are not paid at the market rate of their job. If that were a different city employee, I would be sued for that inequity. That ought to be fixed. Those 12 people should be paid in the same way the rest of the 15,000 are. And I had that to be paid entirely from my budget. So there's not a single city employee, not a single city department that would take $1 of impact from that. But this is a fundamental fairness question that has to be fixed, and I will fix it.
I hear a lot of different pots of money in today's conversation, but let me just be clear. Were pay raises for these 12 appointees on the table at the same time you were discussing furloughs for everybody?
They're at the same time we're discussing the entire budget. Yeah, and the total cost is about $200,000 for those increases. The total size of the budget gap is $200 million. And that $200 million gap is in part because the other 15,000 employees have regularly scheduled increases we will stay committed to. So really we just undid for 12, but we are keeping going for the other 15,000 employees.
Will those pay raises be on the table for 2026 when that budget shortfall is $200 million?
I don't know when we'll return to them, but it is a fairness problem that we'll have to solve. I think I've made the case clearly for why. We wouldn't do that to any other 12 city employees, and we won't do it for those 12. And it will cause you to lose talent. You have many of these folks for whom their deputies or 2 or 3 layers below them make more than they do, because those people get regular increases like all of the 15,000 employees. So it's a mistake in the city charter. We should fix it. It is not a cost driver on the budget crisis. It's $200,000 on what is a much bigger structural problem.
200 or 500,000?
Oh, in year one, it would have been about 200. Maybe it's 300,000, but it is a fractional amount of the total need.
I know that the city council several times over the last month had been asking for the budget shortfall number. 50 million for this year, 200 million for next year. That doesn't just happen in the last month. When did you know?
Well, we're watching returns every month to see what happens on sales tax returns. And the graph I showed today shows you've seen just an entire cliff of sales tax revenue since January of 2025. So we're watching each month to see if it will recover. If he reverses on tariffs, will it come back again? If he reverses on a trade war, will it come back again? And then each month we track against seeing what the projections are and seeing if there's enough room for recovery. We built proactively a plan for this year to already save an additional 50 million. So if it weren't for our advanced savings, that gap would be 100 million this year. It wasn't until the economy hit full collapse 5 months into the year that we realized we had to make changes. So we've been monitoring it closely. As soon as we saw that we thought there was not a path for revenue to recover and that costs had to adjust, we started planning for it and then shared it publicly.
How long have you known? The deficit's double-digit millions at least.
So I think I've been in this conversation probably 3 weeks with our finance team about what the challenges are, what the needs are, maybe 4 weeks. I'd have to look at the calendar. But there's, I run the cities. There's a lot of things I do day by day that I don't tweet out or report out to the city. I have to first understand the problem, create a path for the problem, and then share people with the path for that problem. But I have 15,000 employees who don't want a half-baked explanation of where we are. So it's important we know every single driver, what the risks are, and some version of what the path is, so we can feel like they are informed when we start.
I've heard a lot of the reasoning being things that are out of your control. The sales tax revenue, money coming in, or just the economy in general. You talk about this 0% growth in government money. I haven't heard any ownership though. Like you spent 76 million on migrant homelessness from the general fund. I guess if you had even done a fraction of that, you wouldn't have a budget shortfall even for this year. But like, do you take any ownership for the situation?
We own the entire situation. I am the CEO of the city. I run this budget. We have to right size this budget to fix it. And that's what we're going to do. So this is exactly what you do in these situations. You see a problem and you step in and you fix it. So there are a lot of ways you could have tried to avoid this, kick the can down the road, wait for another year, take some vacancy savings. We're making the hard decisions and making them directly. But what we're not going to do is undo investments that are actually solving the most important problem Denverites face and that they elected me in office to solve, which is homelessness. Still today in this city, Denverites will say that's the single most important issue they want solved. And we are on the path to solve it more effectively than any previous administration or any other city. Like, that's working. We'll keep doing that. There are another $1.8 billion of expenditures we have to take a similar look at. Are each one of those working? And are they delivering the results that residents want? And if not, how do we change them or make them smaller?
Furloughs, you said, was going to save $10 million for this budget year?
Yes.
So how many furlough days are you anticipating for next year?
We're not anticipating furlough days for next year. What we're doing this year is working on how we do furloughs to solve a short one-time budget need this year. Next year, what we're doing is the harder work of how do you structurally right-size this budget. You can't have expenditures growing faster than revenues. Any family's checking account, that does not work. Over the last 10 years, the city's revenues have only grown by 75%. Expenditures have grown by 83%. That means over time, we're spending 8% more than we're bringing in. That's not sustainable. What we have to do is right-size the whole city government to make it a sustainable government, and that's what we'll do for 2026, assuming that there's zero revenue growth. If it's better, great, but we're going to plan for the worst.
In the announcement in the news conference, you talked about not really touching core services, that those would stay intact. What do you consider a core, or maybe I should reverse it. What don't you consider a core service?
Yes. So I'd say we have two priorities. One is we are going to stay focused on the citywide goals that we have. That's the agenda of this administration. That's what we know matters the most to the public. That includes public safety. It's going to continue to be a top priority. That includes homelessness. That includes affordable housing. That includes staying focused on making this a great city to raise a child or to be a child. It includes hitting goals on climate while growing business. Those will all continue to be core priorities for us. And we will also focus on core services. We're not going to stop picking up trash. We are not going to stop making sure that we have someone to provide social services when you walk into the Denver Human Services office. So we're going to focus on that, but we have to look at where are the places that we can trim back without directly affecting public-facing services. I'm not saying that it'll be possible to have zero impact on public services, but we're going to do everything we can to live within our means and reduce impact on public services.
So, I mean, trash is going to get picked up, but does that mean what not a core service is trash at a park or mowing the lawns at a park or library, like where is not the core service that we will see an impact?
Yeah. So this is the starting line for us. So this is what we spend the next 4 months doing, is building that budget. That means for us going through with a fine tooth comb, every single department, every single expenditure, every single division, what the work is they're doing, what outcomes we're getting, and is there a way to either trim that, reduce that, or eliminate that? But that's what we'll spend the next 4 months doing with our 15,000 employees and our senior team.
You're still going to seek a bond package from voters, which I know wouldn't add any money to what a voter is currently, or a resident of Denver is currently paying.
Correct.
But if you don't seek the bond, part of their property tax would reduce. So it would be a bit of a savings.
It would not. It would not reduce for about 17 years. So what happens is, so first is, you're right, we will still pursue a bond. In the same way, we'll still pursue our investments in downtown that we're doing through the Downtown Development Authority. Important to know, all of these key investments you hear about, stock show, women's soccer, downtown, those all do not involve a single dollar of general fund. We could take all those to zero, and it would not make a single dollar difference in this $200 million gap. But these are investments that drive long-term revenue. And so people would say, gosh, best example of this is Convention Center. That was an investment that was made right after the 1987 stock market crash. Most people would say, wow, terrible idea to invest. Well, that is one of the biggest drivers of revenue now for the city. Union Station redevelopment was launched in the middle of the Great Recession in 2008. People would say, terrible time to make an investment. Lower downtown is the major economic driver for the city right now because of Union Station, where upper downtown is struggling. So we will keep making these investments, because these investments are actually what drive return in revenue, but they do it without taking a single dollar that could go to a city employee, or they could go to a city program.
Well, let's talk about the $70 million for the NWSL Women's Soccer Stadium. First, explain to me why a capital money can't be diverted for general fund use.
Yeah, so they are fundamentally different buckets of money with different, often charter or constitutional purposes. In that case, those are actually bond dollars supported by voters to support capital projects that are linked to this. That's the first reason. And the second is, even if that weren't true, you still do want to keep making capital investments alongside your regular general fund investments. You wouldn't want to stop ever paving roads or building bridges or building parks or playgrounds or rec centers. If you do that, then you just start dying as a city. And so they are structurally different funds that can't be used for the same thing, but they also are investments you want to maintain if you want the city to grow and not die.
In terms of that stadium, I understand the structure of the funding, but why not tell the rich people behind bringing the team here that you have the money to do this? I know there was that threat, like if we don't get the city investment or the infrastructure, our ownership is expecting this. Otherwise, we may not be here. So the idea that you must contribute this much money that's going to add to your bottom line, because you're going to have to upkeep the roads that you put in and upkeep all the infrastructure. That's going to be a new general fund expense to the city. Why not tell these people, you take care of that. We'll keep it clean after you've built it, but you do it.
Well, we are doing that. We are saying you build it. They are building the stadium all by themselves, not a single dollar.
But the infrastructure.
What we're doing is buying the land, because we want to own the land, because what you want is, if there's ever a situation where 30 or 40 years from now, the stadium moves, the team moves, you want that city land back to be able to use it. For instance, Mile High Stadium, we own all the land in that area. If that stadium were ever to move or leave, that comes back to Denver. We don't want that to be lost. And so we'll own the land, and we'll, like we do in any neighborhood, help make sure there's a road that leads to that property or a sidewalk to walk on to keep you safe. But they'll build the stadium, they'll maintain and operate it, and we'll get the tax revenue. And for us, that is what supports the maintenance of the streets and the roads. And by the way, that will also put 1,100 jobs to work when the construction starts. Those are Denverites making money, paying taxes, generating revenue for us immediately, even before the stadium opens. So I feel very strongly this is the way you support a city's growth, is you have to be able to invest in the things that make people want to live here or want to visit here. That's what these sites do.
What about the perception? You may be able to explain your way out of it.
Yeah.
But the perception from someone who doesn't understand the finances is the city just pushed this much money over here and they're making me take a furlough over here.
Yeah, I think that's my job as a leader to make that case. I made it to all of our employees today. I make it to every resident I see on the street. I'll make it on social media. That's my job, is to communicate that. But it's also my job to stand in and deliver on good policy, even if it's not popular for some folks. It would be a terrible disservice to the city for me to say, to make me more popular, why don't I cut all these massive investment projects, shut down the stock show at $3 billion of impact a year, shut down women's soccer at $2.2 billion of impact, shut down downtown, where 30% of our jobs are, 15% of our sales taxes. That would be irresponsible of me as a leader. My job is to make the case for why it's important and then to deliver the actual outcome that comes when we do it right.
I heard you say layoffs. Does a layoff mean someone who currently has a job at the city of Denver could be fired?
Yes.
Not just we're not filling open seats.
Yeah, I mean, this is a terrible position to be in. No CEO, no mayor, no business leader ever wants to have to do this. But the condition we are in right now is sales tax is too flat, revenues and expenses are too high. We have to right size. That will require laying people off, and that will be not just vacancies, it will be great folks that we have now, who I'm sure when we restructure this $200 million, we won't have all the same folks we have now.
You mentioned the Denver Broncos stadium. Do you want to break news on that right now?
No, not at all.
I know Kyle asks you this every time he talks with you. Are you expecting to be arrested?
No, I'm planning not to be arrested. And I think I'm going to try to stay focused on just running this city well. And that's where we know there's lots of stuff orbiting at the federal level. We want to really stay focused on what we can do to drive outcomes here. And yes, I got to take responsibility for our own budget and cut it so it fits within our means. We got to do everything we can to drive revenue so the city recovers, and then we'll weather the federal storms as best we can.
I'll point out we have 2 Democratic elected leaders from New Jersey, a mayor and a congresswoman, who have recently been arrested.
I did see that.
Is there a backup contingency plan for the city of Denver should you be taken into custody?
Yeah, we do have a deputy mayor who would oversee the city if I were to be arrested, but I'm not planning on doing that. And again, I think what we're clear about while we're on the topic is for everyone to know at home, there is not a single federal law the city and county of Denver violates. We are in accordance with every single federal law, every state law, every local law, whether it's on DEI, whether it's on immigration, you name the issue. But we also have values in the city that we uphold, and we both uphold those values and follow the law. There's no reason to arrest me or cut city funds or target the state to eliminate construction or transportation projects because we have values that are within the law.
Is there a written policy, plan, signal chat that says if Johnston's in custody, this is what happens next?
No, there's just a clear chain of command as at the federal level. We have a deputy mayor, Al Gardner serves as our deputy mayor. And so if I were not able to perform the duties, he would step in.
I know this isn't city tax dollars, but we talked about 16th Street earlier this week. Downtown Denver Partnership spent $100,000 on an international firm to come back and just cross off the last 4 letters of 16th Street Mall and call it 16th Street. Would you have liked to have seen that money spent locally? Does it bother you that it was sent to London?
I mean, obviously, I think that they made the decision to bring on the best company they thought they could find to do that. I know that they have all the local artists, and the brand team that's leading the development of the mall is all local. The development of 16th Street is now all local. I was in the room in those conversations about the renaming. I do think it's significant. I mean, you and I joked about this, but yeah, I've called it the 16th Street Mall my whole life. And until I was 20, I thought that just meant the Tabor Center. I thought that was the whole 16th Street Mall because I was looking for a mall, and that's where you walk in, go to the food court, and walk out. It really disserves the rest of the businesses on that 1.2 mile stretch to have people believe they're looking for a mall. But we looked at a lot of different things. We thought about rebranding, renaming, adding, and we came back to the core brand is right, but you have to change the perception you're looking for a suburban mall. That's not the experience. And I do think what is a part of this is not just what it's named, but how it will feel. What you'll see now are 3 new big activated outdoor public spaces. You'll have open consumption where you can come and have a beer or a cocktail and watch your kids play. You'll have a lot of local stores and restaurants that you know that you'll find down there. We call it the best of Denver, only in Denver. It will feel like the trailhead to the rest of Colorado. When you come here, the first place you got to go is 16th Street. We think cities benefit from that really clear, powerful brand. And so they made that choice. I support it. I support the new title, and I think it's going to help drive business all along that corridor.
What do you call the stadium where the Broncos play?
I call it Mile High.
Point made.
From November 14th to 21st, we're inviting you to join us for a powerful trip to Ghana. This isn't just a vacation. This is a chance to walk through the same places where many of our people were captured, held, and shipped off into slavery. So don't wait. Secure your spot today. We're making history by walking through it. Will you be with us?
Now, this criminality, that we see going on in America with them folks, that's never talked about. We don't talk about their criminality in their culture because, they have a lot of criminality in their culture. You know what? A lot of us are tired. Yes, we are tired of their criminality. Case in point, they're always trying to call somebody ghetto or whatever. Well, check out the thievery that they do.
Oh my gosh.
But one of them could barely run. The other two, they just stealing. I mean, like, why are y'all stealing? I thought, didn't y'all come from 2-parent households? I thought that it's those Black single mothers out there that, have these kids and they out there committing crimes. What I have noticed a lot is that a lot of them come from so-called 2-parent households and yet commit some of the most heinous crimes. Why is that? Now, the white supremacists, what they like to say is, Black people committing the most crime. No. Y'all commit the most crime. You always have committed the most crime. You're not held accountable for it. Your charges are dropped. Your charges are dismissed. That's why your crimes aren't where they should be on paper. That's what that is. Because I haven't seen Black people go into court and get their crimes just lessened or even straight dismissed. They usually do something to Black people, something. Now that Black person has a good defense team, they have a little bit more on their side, but most Black folks go in there, they don't have nothing. They something happening to Black folk. But we look at the school shooters, we look at the stealing, look at things like Enron. I mean, when they steal for keeps, okay? They steal people. They steal countries. They steal resources. They steal. No Black person have stolen the amount of things that these people have stolen. We can't even compare as a group of that much thievery, right? When these people always try to talk about us being criminals, they are projecting who they are onto us. When they say, oh, you Black people, you're the real racist, actually, you're projecting who you are and you're trying to do that to us. That's why as Black people, we never should get into that because we don't have a 400-year documented history of enslaving any people, putting people in Jim Crow, mass incarcerating people, putting drugs in people's neighborhood, redlining people. We aren't arrested for all kind of crime